What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories.
3 Shish. Chapter 61 The Queen of Ice. Demon God appears, the essence of demons. Snapped. With the snap of fingers, the picture in the arena froze again. There is no suspense, although Irina's magic wash continues. But in fact, the mechanical fortress has already been wiped out in the magical attack of the sky. Usopp rubbed his stiff cheeks. This kind of terrifying firepower can already fight a large pirate group alone. No wonder it is called Father. Zoro also shook his head. This kind of attack doesn't make any sense at all. 35. It was full of oppressive power, bombarded from start to finish, and the enemy had no chance to fight back. There are no gaps and no gaps. Nami pinched his chin and thought for a while, then said, I still think the first one is more suitable for me. 9. Although the second one is also very strong. But inexplicably, she was more interested in the electric shocker. Let's look at the next one first. Chen snapped his fingers. The 4 templates must be read through. Snapped. In the arena, a new figure descended. Compared with the first 2 petite girls, this one is too mature. He has long ice blue hair, a white military uniform, and a blood-colored mark on his chest. With a long sword pinned to his waist, Bing, Juchi-san's blue pupils are full of indifference. Compared with the first 2 beautiful girls with no aura. She is like a queen of the world. As soon as he appeared, the huge aura spread out. As if any creature that came into her sight would become her prey. The youngest and strongest general of the empire, Ace Day, Chen introduced. Having Taigu, demon god appearance, demon essence, is a bloodthirsty fighter who believes in the supremacy of the strong. 95. The introduction of the last sentence is his personal summary of Ace Day. Strictly speaking, Ace Day is very friendly to his subordinates. But this can't change the essence of its fighting madness. Ace Day, battle mad. Nami looked at him with a bewildered expression. I don't seem to be very compatible with this character. On the other hand, it was Zoro, whose hand had unknowingly put on the hilt of the knife, and there seemed to be a burning intent to fight in his eyes. I feel it, that powerful fighting intent. 99. The characters appearing this time, even if you just look at the aura, you can feel the power. This terrifying aura is hard for anyone to ignore. It was as if her presence was like a bright light in the night. It's hard not to notice her. It is in stark contrast to the 2 beautiful girls who appeared in the front. PFF'd. Sanji slammed back and fell straight, 2 nosebleeds gushing out, and he was still shouting with difficulty. My lady queen, I have no regrets in this life. Who can refuse a super S queen with a good figure, a frosty face, and an invincible aura? At least Sanji couldn't refuse. His eyes had turned into heart-shaped ones. You guy, your focus is different every time. Chen glanced at Sanji. Fortunately, when I picked a template for you, I chose strong men. 5. If this is to pick out a strong female, I am afraid that this guy will not need to choose directly. Chen shook his head. Okay, let's start. 35. Snapped. With the snap of his fingers, the scene in the arena came alive again. A huge silver-white mechanical fortress fell from the sky. On the ferocious muzzle, there is a cold glow of steel. There is no momentum to speak of, but its combat ability is beyond doubt. Oh, Acedes tilted his head and glanced at the monster in front of him. The prey this time looks really strange. A round big ball. DDD. The enemy has been detected, the attack system has been turned on, and the target has been locked. An electronic sound without emotional fluctuations came from the mechanical fortress. Blazing white particles of light converged on the ferocious muzzles. At the same time, 2 new windows suddenly popped up on its sides. 2 shots of Vulcan Gatling were suddenly pushed out and aimed at the humanoid unit on the opposite side. This is Chen's setup. Because the first 2 players on the stage were too brutal. Without even giving the opportunity to make a follow-up shot, he directly smashed the mechanical fortress. So it's better to take out more weapons from the beginning. Boom. 55. A series of lasers with thick bowls swept away in the direction of Ace Day, leaving trails of anxiety in the air. At the same time, the 2 Vulcan Gatlings also began to spin, and a terrifying torrent of bullets poured out like a flood of open gates. Hey, Ace Day let out a mocking chuckle, stomping his feet lightly. Crackling. In the arena, an incomparably huge ice wall suddenly stood up. The thickness of this ice wall reaches tens of meters. It's more of an iceberg than an ice wall. Like an indestructible iron wall, it stops all incoming attacks. Is this a show? Ace Day fluttered his long hair behind him with interest. If so, I admit, your acting is kind of funny. While speaking, she jumped up and flew directly into the air. However, I don't have so much time to waste on you, so I'll give you a splendid funeral. 35. In the sky, a huge iceberg was formed from nothing in the blink of an eye. Then, it fell from the sky like a meteorite. DDD. Detected a heavy blow on the way, the defense system has been activated. Boom. With the deafening sound, the entire arena area was overwhelmed by icebergs. There were cracks in the ground. Everything seemed to be frozen in ice. The demon god appears, the essence of the demon, Chen explained in the audience. Forged from the blood of the legendary super dangerous species living in the far north, anyone who drinks it will go mad. 5. This is a dangerous emperor tool that is similar to a demon's sword and will eat the lord. Ace Day is the only one who can withstand his abilities. The ice elements can be manipulated freely, and the number and speed are astonishing. Not only that, the blood in the emperor's armor actually only needs one sip. But Ace Day drank it straight away. So much so that the ability she acquired was unprecedentedly powerful. Boom. Suddenly, a scorching laser pierced through the ice. The silver-white mechanical fortress slowly drilled out from under the iceberg. Obviously, the blow did not make it incapacitated. Although it has been squashed a lot from the circle. Oh, Ace Day, who had already landed, raised his eyebrows unexpectedly, and then a frantic smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Very good, that's what makes it interesting. The long sword around her waist was pulled out by her and pointed at the mechanical fortress. Show me your struggle. Binglan Admiral Army. Clack clack clack. For a time, the endless cold spread, covering the entire arena. The ground begins to freeze and the air begins to cool. Then, knights made of solid ice rose from the ice. This is an army of ice knights. Frost Warhorse, Frost Knight, Frost Spear. The next moment, the army began to charge. Denga-denga-deng. The sound of the hooves was so uniform that the ground seemed to be shaking. Countless ice knights raised the ice spears in their hands and rushed towards the mechanical fortress without hesitation. This scene is the real interpretation of what is called one-man army. Boom, boom, boom. One after another impact kept falling on the mechanical fortress. Even the shell made of special stainless steel began to dent continuously. This is the might of thousands of troops. It is definitely not an ordinary individual that can stop it. In the audience, Chen continued to explain. Binglan Admiral Army has produced a large number of ice cavalry, each of which has a combat power that ordinary soldiers cannot match. 5. With a wave of your hand, you can shape thousands of troops. What is even more frightening is that these ice knights made of ice are not afraid of death at all, and they are much stronger than ordinary soldiers. This one move alone is enough to make a seed sweep the battlefield. Everyone was stunned. No wonder, she is a general. 55. To have this person is to have an invincible and inexhaustible ice army. Although it's not like the one who can control all the elements just now, but the ice element is used in ultimate. This is clearly a queen of ice. In the arena, Ace Day seemed to be bored, and took the long sword in his hand and walked towards the mechanical fortress step by step. At this time, the mechanical fortress was full of scars. Numerous wounds were poked by countless ice knights, and the parts were exposed. That's it, Aceed's eyes became indifferent. I'm starting to feel bored. The next moment, her hands were pressed together in front of her chest. An icy blue light flashed away. Time seems to be frozen at this moment. The sky is covered with frost. 1.2. Whether it was an ice knight or a mechanical fortress, or even the snowflakes that were still falling in the sky, they all fell into a pause. Only Ace Day is still walking forward, the long sword in his hand is slowly raised. Mokobatmo, Chen's eyes narrowed slightly. There is nothing to say about this move, but 4 words are enough to sum it up: freeze time and space. 35. Hiss. There was a subconscious inhalation sound all around. Ace Day is undoubtedly a true fighting genius. She developed the properties of Frost Ultimate. Freeze everything, and finally even time and space can be frozen. Shit. 95. Like a hot knife cutting butter. In the air, a dazzling cold light passed by. The long sword was cut down, and the mechanical fortress was divided into 2. Then, as if time had been thawed, time began to pass again. The snowflakes in the sky continued to fall, and the ice knights continued to charge. The only difference is that the mechanical fortress has been cut in half. Snapped. With Chen's fingers snapping, the picture froze again. The battle is over. Chapter 62 Super Spec Power, an understatement to end the battle. Woo, my queen, my lord Aceeds. In the audience, Sanji stretched out his hand sadly, as if trying to keep the ice blue long-haired female general in the arena. Unfortunately, with the stagnation of the screen, all the scenes in the arena were directly reset. Click. Everyone seemed to hear the sound of heartbreak. UB**************, D. It's almost enough. Nami covered his forehead with a headache, his face full of helplessness. Woo. Fortunately there is you, Miss Nami. 35. Sanji reluctantly got up and stretched out his hand towards Nami again. Bam. With a punch in the head, Sanji fell again. Nami clapped his hands. Humph. The people around were not surprised by this. That guy Sanji has such a personality. She is the type who can't walk when she sees a beautiful woman. Chen turned to look at her. This time, how do you feel? Ace Day. Nami paused, then said seriously, although she is very strong, I don't think she is very suitable for me. It was mainly the aura of the ice blue long-haired female general, which was really impressive. Just thinking of her makes me think of the words, Queen of Ice. This kind of character is too low for Nami. Chen nodded and said nothing more. Then let's look at the next one. Snapped. With the snap of his fingers, a small figure descended out of thin air in the arena. She is even smaller than Misaka Makoto and Irena in front of her. He has long green curly hair and is wearing a black slit gown. Although small in stature, he is awe-inspiring. By the way, I have to remind you, Chen said suddenly, this person's ability is actually a bit out of specification in O2. If you choose her, the training will be very difficult. Super spec. Nami blinked. She thought of the so-called gods that appeared in the fantasy world when Usopp chose before. Those strengths also require extremely high training difficulty to obtain. That's right, over spec, Chen nodded and said lightly. Thurling Tornado, the second-ranked S-rank hero in the Hero Association. Well, although he looks like a lowly, his actual age is 28 years old, and of course, his mental age and appearance are similar. Also, this, lowly, can slap you into outer space. The last sentence, he said to Sanji. Because when he heard the previous words, Sanji couldn't wait to get up from the ground and stared at the arena with his eyes full of heart. A mature and cute-looking lowly. For Sanji, this is undoubtedly a mental crit. However, Sanji could no longer listen to what he said, lying on the seat with a smirk on his face. Tronju, is she called Dragonroll? Hee, Miss Tornado. Forget it, Chen shook his head. Let's start. Snapped. Fingers snapped. The time originally suspended in the arena restarted. The silver-white mechanical fortress suddenly fell from the sky. 35 Tornado looked around. Why am I here? DDD. The enemy has been detected, the attack system has been turned on, and the target has been locked. The icy electronic sound rang, and on the mechanical fortress, blazing white laser particles began to converge in the muzzles. What? Tornado frowned and slowly floated up from the ground, holding his hands. Is it a new type of combat robot developed by a secret organization? 99. A green shimmer surrounded her, as if a breeze lifted her up. In her world, such fighting robots were actually not uncommon. Many secret organizations with impure purposes will conduct such research. And also let these battle robots attack the heroes of the Hero Association to test their performance. Tornado, the ace of the Hero Association, naturally encountered such a thing. Boom. No time to think. On the mechanical fortress, the ferocious gun barrels overheated in an instant. The laser cannon pierced the sky and swept straight towards the tornado in midair. The afterimage tracks left by the laser remain in the air. HMPH. 99. A light hum came out of the Dragon Roll's mouth. She looked at these laser cannons with disgust in her eyes. You people's skills are getting worse and worse. Even if the weapon is so poorly made, it is better to self-destruct directly, so as not to waste my time. Saying that, she stretched out a finger and hooked it lightly. Suddenly, the space seemed to stand still. The dozen or so laser cannons that had come aggressively stopped abruptly in midair. The green shimmer around the tornado became brighter and brighter. She raised her chin in disdain and waved her hand gently. HMPH, go. 99. Saw. The sound of breaking through the air resounded. One after another, the lasers turned their gun heads one after another and smashed down towards the mechanical fortress on the ground. DDD. Detected an energy strike on the way, the defense system has been activated. Boom. The flames soared into the sky, rolling up smoke and dust in the sky. The ground cracked, and the cracks spread around like a spider web. The outer shell of the mechanical fortress was abruptly smashed to red, and the gurgles of high-temperature molten iron continued to drip onto the ground. Psychic power, Chen explained lightly in the audience. The ability of the tornado is very simple, it is the power of thought. What's not simple is that her psychic power is very powerful. When she is so powerful, she can even wipe out a city directly. In the world of One Punch, when Tornado used psychic power to strangle Orochi, the leader of the Weird Association, he twisted the entire Z city into a rag. And her younger sister Fubuki, who is the same psychic power, can't even destroy a building. That is to say, what is powerful is not the ability of psychic power, but the tornado itself. She is a monster of a monster. It's like fire style in Hokage. A mere B-rank ninjutsu. But when it came out of Madara's mouth, it immediately formed a sea of fire. A full 20 ninja allied forces cast water-style water barrier together to block it. Still the same sentence, there is no ability of waste, only the ability of waste. Destroy a city directly. Usopp's expression was stiff, as if he was listening to a book from heaven. Forget about the city. For him, even destroying a village with one blow is already a very exaggerated thing. Psychic power. Nami took a deep breath, but managed to calm down. When choosing a target template, you can't just consider the strength or weakness. Also consider fit and training difficulty. From these 2 points of view, the green curly-haired loli is not very compatible with her. In the arena, well, it's really boring. Tornado yawned as if sleepy. Afterwards, she glanced at the mechanical fortress on the ground. How dare someone like you attack me? Although this is not sound, it is true. Dare to attack her, the ace of the Hero Association, without enough strength, it is simply a food delivery. Tornado stood in midair, stretched out his right hand, and squeezed gently. Die. Kakaka, as if an invisible big hand came, carrying the terrifying power of Pimu Onenyu, twisting the entire mechanical fortress a little bit. Steel bends and bends under the force. Parts popped out one by one. DDD. Encountered a force majeure blow, the system is about to start self-destruction. Self-destruction. Tornwan held his hands together with a displeased expression. Wouldn't it be better if you destroyed yourself sooner? You're wasting so much time on me. 39. Now, I won't allow it. For a time, the green shimmer suddenly skyrocketed. Kaka. The speed at which the mechanical fortress was twisted suddenly increased. In just a blink of an eye, it was twisted into a twist. All kinds of sophisticated instruments have been turned into scraps of iron. There is still residual current sizzling on it. HMPH, this is the price of angering me. Tornado stood proudly in the sky, his chin slightly raised. Snapped. In the snap of fingers, the picture in the arena was stagnant. Before everyone in the audience could react, the battle ended so easily. There is no big scene, and even the environment of the arena is not affected much. The speed of the end was so fast that it was not as powerful as the impact brought by the previous three. No way. From beginning to end, the tornado just hooked his fingers and squeezed his fist. To put it mildly, there is no suspense. Then, 39 Chen smiled lightly and turned to look at Nami next to him. How do you feel? Have you made a choice? Nami's expression turned hesitant for a moment. Miss Nami. Sanji quickly got up. Choose Miss Tornado. Apparently, he still has this legitimate loli on his mind. FK me. Nami punched him in the face, knocking him off. I've already made a decision. Nami turned back, looked at Chen and said firmly, I choose the first, Masaka Makoto. I see. Chen nodded slightly. However, her ability is rather special, so I have to explain it to you first. The so-called superpowers are actually a classification. In Academy City, superpowers represent LV.5. Below, there are LV.4 high ability people, LV.3 strong ability people, LV.2 super ability people, and LV.1 low ability people. As for Masaka Makoto, he was actually a LV.1 capable person in the beginning, but his ability grew and he eventually became one of the only 7 superhumans in Academy City. Nami's eyes slowly opened. So, that's right, Chen smiled slightly. You can start training from LV.1, the difficulty will be very low. The so-called LV.1 is probably equivalent to finishing the spoon. With this level of ability, the training difficulty is naturally not high. Chapter 63 The Shock of Red Hair. The Real Secret, the place where it begins and ends. System, customize, train Nami, get electric shocker, ability LV.1 and corresponding computing power. Ding. The training plan has been drawn up. Close black lens bracket. Training object. Nami. Close black lens bracket. Training goal. To obtain the electric shocker, ability LV.1 and the corresponding computing power. Close black lens bracket. Training plan. Enter a state of meditation in which the mind is completely empty for 1 hour for 7 days. Close black lens bracket. A cold mechanical sound resounded in his mind. Nami's training plan is now complete. Snapped. In the snap of fingers, the arena illusion screen suddenly shattered. In the midst of a whirlwind, everyone's consciousness returned to the deck of the Golden Mary. The sound of the waves came to my ears again. At this time, everyone was coming back to their senses. Usopp let out a long breath. I'm back. 99. Every time I go to the fantasy world to watch the battles of the so-called otherworld powerhouses, it will bring a huge spiritual shock to people. After reading it, it's normal to not be able to return to your senses for a while. Woo, my Miss Tornado, my Lady Queen accedes. Sanji fell to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Unexpectedly, Nami's final choice was the little girl in the airport with brown hair. This is a great loss for him. But no one cares about him now. After all, it is not surprising, everyone has become accustomed to it. By the way, what's my training plan? Nami suddenly looked at Chen and asked aloud. Others also looked over. The training plan is very simple for those with low abilities at the LV.1 level, Chen said with a faint smile. Go into a state of mind emptying meditation for an hour a day, and you'll be able to complete your training in 7 days. Is it completely empty of my brain? Nami frowned, and immediately laughed. Well, I understand. Chen added. From the low-powered person of LV.1 to the super-powered person of LV.5, the later training program will become more and more difficult, but in the process, you will also become stronger and stronger. 39. After waiting until the powerful person of LV.3, this ability will really start to show its effect. At least, it is not difficult to hit a current attack smoothly. Now, we all have goals to work on, Usopp shrugged, continuing to crouch on the deck to study his ammunition. Zoro, Sanji and others also started working out. Only Luffy, whose mouth was sealed, sat bored on the bow of the sheep's head, looking out at the sea in the distance. Grand Line, second half. It's called New World, and it's a place that even the Marines and the world government can't reach. Different from the paradise. In the first half, the pirates here, even an ordinary soldier, master hockey. The entire New World was divided and ruled by the 4 emperors. Rare places such as Dressrosa are countries that exist outside the influence of the 4 emperors. At this time, New World, a deserted island. Numerous pirates are sitting on the ground, lazily basking in the sun. A pirate in charge of the lookout is looking at it with a telescope. Suddenly, in the field of vision, there is a small black spot on the sea in the distance that slowly enlarges. The iconic coffin boat and the cross knife are particularly eye-catching. Quote. The pirate holding the binoculars shrank suddenly. Eagle, Hawkeye. It's Hawkeye. After a while, Hawkeye landed on the island. A group of pirates quickly gathered around. Hawkeye. What are you doing here? Don't be noisy. Where are the cadres? I didn't come to you, Mihawk said calmly. Immediately, the pirates ran to the depths of the island. Mihawk followed. To camp in a place like this, that guy is really lazy. Deep in the island, in a forest, many amazing pirates are sitting in the shade. A middle-aged man with red hair leaned on half of the tree trunk and said lightly, Yo, Hawkeye, what a rare visitor. 35. He raised his head slightly. Well, I'm not feeling well right now, are you here to fight me? 35. HMPH, Mihawk said calmly, I never thought about it, and now I'm going to fight with you, the guy with the broken left arm. Mihawk took out 2 wanted notices from his arms. I found a group of interesting pirates, combined with what you and I said, about interesting little ghosts in a certain village. As he spoke, he unfolded one of them, and the Straw Hat Boy was smiling complacently. The surrounding red hair pirates' cadres turned their heads and said, could it be? Shanks grinned, are you here, Luffy? In that case, Hawkeye. Stay for the banquet. Shanks stood up from the tree trunk and laughed, this is something to celebrate. Wait, Mihawk pushed his hand away. I'm here today, and I'm not just talking about that kid. Ah, Shanks was stunned. Is there anything else? That's right, Mihawk unfolded another wanted notice. Do you know this person? On the wanted list, a young man in black was looking indifferently into the distance. In the eyes, a scarlet monster pattern makes people shudder. I don't know, Shanks shook his head decisively. Who is this? Let me see, the cadre of the Straw Hat Pirates, Chen. He scratched his head. Well, I really don't know each other, so what are you trying to say? What I'm trying to say is, Mihawk's eyes became serious. I had a fight with this guy, I was injured, he was unscathed. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark. For a time, Shanks and the other red hair pirates cadres around were all shocked. You actually lost. In a place like East Blue. Incredible. These people, but they know how terrifying the strength of the Hawkeye in front of them. If you have to rank 7 warlords of the sea, this one must be the best candidate. Just because he fought against the red hair of the 4 emperors. Although it's not a life and death battle, let's just pretend I lost, Mihawk said indifferently. Anyway, that person is not a swordsman, so the outcome doesn't matter at all. Wait, Shanks suddenly widened his eyes. This person is the cadre of the Straw Hat Pirates. That's right, Mihawk smiled after a long absence. Did you finally react? And the amount of reward offered by the 2 is almost the same. This means that Marine has also noticed this person. How is that possible? It doesn't make sense. Shanks grabbed his hair and squatted on the ground with a blank look on his face. How could it be? There is such a strong man next to that kid Luffy. Moreover, it is still one that can even hurt Hawkeye. A strong man who has no name in the sea. This is very unscientific. This kind of powerhouse, whether it is to form a pirate group by himself, or directly join Marine, etc. They will definitely be 100 times stronger than following a fledgling little pirate now. Like Hawkeye, is it possible that he will join a small pirate group with a bounty of only 30 million? Whimsical. He must have some purpose, Shanks frowned, rubbing his chin with his only right hand. But Luffy. Suddenly, his eyes widened. Backquote, no way, could it be? What did you think of? Mihawk raised an eyebrow. He knew very well that the red-haired man in front of him had bet his arm on the Straw Hat Boy. Talk about betting your arm on the future. This can only show that the Straw Hat Boy may have an unknown secret. Shouldn't be, how could others know about this? Shanks murmured in a low voice, his face full of wonder. In the eyes of others, the fruit Luffy ate was nothing more than an ordinary paramesha rubber fruit. But Shanks, as a crew member on One Piece Roger's ship, followed Roger to the final land. He knew exactly what that fruit was. Zone Renren fruit Udemon's Denka form. In layman's terms, it's the sun god. Joey Boy's abilities 800 years ago. Only in this way can we explain why there are strong people of that level, following Luffy. Tisk, what a hassle, Shanks slapped his mouth. Looks like I'm going to have to go. Are you going in person? Mihawk gave him a surprised look. That's right, Shanks shrugged. Some things, you have to be careful, and I have to confirm them myself. Because once something goes wrong, the whole thing will collapse. Interesting, Mihawk touched the cross knife on his chest. I also have someone I like in that group. He thought of the green algae, Nuo Zhao, head swordsman who dared to swing a knife at him. I hope that guy can really let him have one more opponent in the future. East Blue, on the sea. Going merry is breaking the water and driving forward. We're approaching the Grand Line, Nami said, standing on the deck with a chart in his hand. It looks like it can only be accessed from this upside-down mountain. 5. There is no other entrance, said Sanji, who was squatting not far away. Old Jep told me that the only way to enter is from there. 99. Ouch, Luffy whimpered. Zoro calmly translated. He said, first find a place to replenish meat. 99. Then go here, Nami pointed to a dot on the chart, Logue Town. 55. It was an island near the entrance to the Grand Line. The town of beginning and end, Zoro looked up at the sky, I've heard of it there. Well, Nami said solemnly, One Piece, the birthplace of Galdi. Roger, is also the place of his death. Therefore, it is called the town of beginning and end. Woo, Luffy's eyes became serious. He said, go there, Zoro said lightly, holding his head. Okay, destination, Logue Town, go. Chapter 64, a turning point in history. You are still far away. Logue Town. The island is actually very large and very populated. Oh, what a big town. Usopp pushed up the goggles, his face full of surprise. All the pirates in East Blue going to the Grand Line will pass here, Nami said with a smile. So it is very prosperous here, and we can basically buy everything we need. Due to the geographical location, the pirates will come here to rest before heading to the Grand Line. Sanji smiled. just right, you can buy some ingredients here, and take a look at the beauties. Zoro scratched his hair. I have nothing to buy. Logically speaking, at this time, he should buy a knife and make up for his 3-knife flow. After all, in the battle with Hawkeye in the restaurant on the sea, both of his knives were damaged. But as long as he completes the training plan, he can have the pair of Kaden Kyokutsu. So there is no need to waste it. Lu Chen's expression was very calm. My word, just walk around. Woo. At this moment, Luffy who was beside him suddenly shouted, and rushed into the town excitedly. Hey, what are you doing? Usopp yelled from behind. Zoro reluctantly translated. He said he was going to see the execution stand. 99. Well, anyway, let's go and buy what we need. Nami smiled and walked towards the town. The crowd dispersed and went to buy different things. Lu Chen also followed his good deeds and walked towards the square in the town, where there was the execution platform where Roger, the Pirate King, was executed. The other side, in the Marine base in Logue Town. A Marine hurriedly pushed open the door of the base chief's office. Colonel Smoker. Something bad happened. Ah, a deep voice sounded 973 times. What's the matter? In the office, the smoke is lingering, making it difficult to see the situation inside. A man with short silver hair wearing a coat with the word, Justice, printed on it was leaning on the sofa, biting 2 cigars in his mouth, his expression indifferent. The Marine soldier swallowed his saliva subconsciously, and then said, there is news from the headquarters that the big pirate from East Blue, Monkey D. Luffy, who has offered a reward of 30 million Bailey, is about to arrive in our Logue Town. 30 million. Big pirates. Smoker chuckled, that's a lot of bounty. He is the colonel of the headquarters. It was only because he was too thorny that he was assigned to Logue Town as a branch colonel. On the Grand Line, he has seen countless pirates. With a mere 30 million bounty, it is estimated that only East Blue in this, weakest sea, will be called a big pirate. The Marine soldier was stunned. Yes, but they defeated Admiral Crick and the evil dragon pirates, they are really vicious villains. Don't panic. Smoker stood up slowly, his voice calm. Have any pirates escaped since I took charge of this place? That's right. Logue Town was once used as a base by countless pirates. Since Smoker took office, all the pirates who have come here have been caught in jail. In the entire Logue Town, no pirates dared to make trouble, and the peace index skyrocketed. No, Marine soldier replied subconsciously. That's it. Smoker put on his special weapon, 10 hands, and walked out. No matter who it is, I will solve it. Yes. The soldier saluted quickly. Smoker walked to the door, picked up the 2 wanted notices in the soldier's hands and looked at it. 2 ACBCEH. The captain offered a reward of 30 million, and the cadre offered a reward of 28 million. His brow furrowed slightly. This arrest warrant is obviously unreasonable. That is to say, this cadre named Lu Chen, isn't it simple? Smoker exhaled a big mouthful of white smoke. Oh, 30 million, I hope you can give me some surprises. Saying that, he put down the warrant and strode out the door. Behind him, the soldier's voice came. Colonel, don't you need to call the soldiers? I'm alone, that's enough. Execution square. Luffy was struggling to climb up the high execution platform. On the square below, Lu Chen, who was dressed in black, folded his arms and watched with great interest. Finally found you. Just then, a voice came from behind. Several figures in cloaks passed through the crowd and walked around Lu Chen. Behind them, followed by a large number of pirates. It's you. Lu Chen turned his head and raised his eyebrows unexpectedly. I thought you should be practicing smashing your bones now. Cough, torn apart. The visitor lifted the cloak, revealing the red-nosed clown's face below. HMPH, this uncle has practiced to 200 yuan now, and it's not far from splitting into 1,000 yuan. So, what's your business with me? Lu Chen asked indifferently. Hee, of course I'm looking for revenge on you, Buggy sneered. Although I haven't reached the fruitful awakening, my uncle's strength has not been what it used to be. During this time, he developed the ability of chop fruit all the time. Although the fruit awakening is still far away, at least the strength is improving every day. Now he can not only split his body, even touched objects and creatures can be split apart. At this moment, another voice came over. I found it. A tall figure wearing a coat of justice stepped forward, holding 2 iconic cigars in his mouth, with awe. Huh, Buggy turned his head. See, Marine. Smoker raised his eyebrows. Hey, are there any other pirates? We just caught them all in one go. He slowly pulled out the 10 hands behind him and walked forward. Pirates, you should stay in prison. B***************** D. 35. On the side of the 10 hands, there is a special short blade slot. This is a special design for restraining swords. The upper end is also inlaid with sea stone to restrain demon fruit power. Oops, a pirate shouted. It's the White Hunter, Colonel Smoker. 35. Flee. For a time, the pirates in the square fled in all directions, with no intention of fighting at all. Buggy also gritted his teeth. If you are lucky, I don't want to fight this guy. 39. Saying that, he also put on a cloak and hurriedly fled. In this East Blue, Smoker's notoriety has been widely spread among pirates. All the pirates who came to Logue Town were caught by him and put in prison. No pirate wants to go up against this guy. You won't run away. Smoker walked into the square with 10 hands in hand, staring at the figure in black. Escape. Lu Chen said indifferently. Why escape? I'm here to witness a turning point in history. He looked up, and on the high execution platform, Luffy had already climbed to the top. Boom. On the horizon, there was a thunderbolt streaking across the sky, illuminating the entire square. At the same time, Luffy also raised his hand and whimpered, "Woo. 35. What's that guy doing?" Smoker frowned, looking at the execution block inexplicably. He said, the corner of Lu Chen's mouth raised a smile, "He wants to become One Piece." Huh. Smoker's eyes twitched slightly. "Don't talk about One Piece, with me here, you can't even get out of Logue Town." Lu Chen didn't care at all, looked at the execution platform and smiled lightly. What reason is there to stop a man from setting sail? 39. HMPH, Smoker's eyes narrowed, and the 10 hands in his hand waved down on the spot. Delusional. Saw. The sound of breaking through the air resounded, and the 10 hands swept through the air and passed through Lu Chen's body. Huh. Smoker's eyes widened slightly. Not cut. I heard that you are a Logia-capable person. Lu Chen turned to look at him. Ah, yes, Smoker said solemnly, it seems you know me well. He raised his head, and a pair of scarlet and demonic eyes came into view. In an instant, Smoker's pupils shrank sharply, as if his heart was tightly clenched. Even breathing became difficult. This is the suppression in the spiritual realm, and it is a complete crushing in the aura. Bam! Subconsciously, a cloud of smoke erupted from Smoker's body. Elementalized. This is a purely knee-jerk behavior, like an animal in nature in danger. Before the brain can react, the neural response has already begun to manipulate the body to escape. Snapped. A hand went through the smoke and grabbed Smoker's head. Scarlet eyes loomed in the smoke. Lu Chen's voice sounded leisurely. Your training is still too far behind. You. Smoker clenched his teeth and stared into those eyes. How could a guy like you appear in East Blue? Just for a moment, he already realized the difference. The man in black in front of him is not the monster that East Blue should appear at all. It is extremely difficult for him to even move. It's not that there is a problem with ability, but it seems that consciousness has been manipulated. Have you forgotten? Lu Chen said indifferently. East Blue wasn't called the weakest sea from the beginning. 5. The previous generation of One Piece, Gall D. Roger, came out of East Blue. Not just Roger. Rayleigh, Garp these old guys, which one is not from East Blue? Smoker's eyes widened slowly. Do you want to be the second Roger? Lu Chen smiled meaningfully. It's not me, but someone will inherit his will. Far away, on the sea outside Logue Town, a ship was moored quietly. On the deck, the cloaked dragon stared deeply into the distance. On the side, a subordinate said, Boss, are you not going to take action? No need, Long grinned. Someone has already done what I want to do. Chapter 65 The Highest Force. Admiral dispatched. Little lowly obese. Hey, Luffy, Lu Chen turned to the execution platform and shouted, it's time to go. Woohoo, Luffy responded, jumping straight from the form. Look for others, it's time to set sail, Lu Chen said with a smile. Their supplies should be almost finished. If they stay here, the entire Logue Town will be in complete chaos. Although that may not have been the intention of the Luffy gang. Woohoo, Luffy waved and ran out of the square. Smoker raised his head with difficulty and looked at the figure. The one you chose, is that kid? Lu Chen glanced at him and said lightly, why, doesn't it look like it? Smoker said solemnly. At least it seems that his spirit and Roger's spirit are, I don't know how many times they are different. Lu Chen shrugged. A person can't just look at the appearance. As he spoke, the corner of his mouth evoked a meaningful smile. Besides, how do you know how fast his future growth will be? 39. Going to sea for a few short years. Luffy was just a hairy kid who didn't even know what hockey was. Forcibly grow into a veritable fifth emperor in New World. How many people in the world can achieve such a terrifying potential? All in all, you'll have to wait and see. Lu Chen let go of his hand, and his figure disappeared in a twisted space. Bam! Smoker fell to the ground, and the control of consciousness seemed to return in an instant. He stood up immediately, looking solemnly in the direction Luffy had left. Colonel Smoker. A young girl with short blue hair ran over with a long knife. Are you all right? What happened just now? It's all right. Smoker shook his head, took out 2 new cigars from his arms, put them in his mouth, and turned to look at the girl. Tashigi, go, get my phone bug, I have something very important to report to the headquarters. His expression has returned to calm. But in that calm, it seemed as if a volcano was about to erupt. Tashigi was stunned for a moment, but turned and ran to Marine Station. I see. Smoker stood there, lit the cigar, took a deep breath, and then looked up at the sky. This matter is very important, you can't report it directly to those stupid generals. After a while, Grand Line, Naval Headquarters, Marineford. Admiral Aokiji's office. A plaque that reads, Lazy Justice, hangs on the front wall of the office. A tall man in a Marine Justice cape was lying on the sofa, sleeping soundly, his eyes covered by green blindfolds. Boom blah blah blah. The phone bug on the desk suddenly made a sound. Aokiji raised his hand and pulled the blindfold up, yawning. Didn't I say, don't call me for normal things? But even though he said that, he still connected the phone bug. The next moment, the phone bug turned into a smoker-like appearance. Hey, is that Kuzan? Aokiji raised his eyebrows in surprise. It's you, Smoker, what's the matter with me at this time? Smoker said solemnly, When I was arresting the Straw Hat Pirates, I found out. Before he could finish speaking, he was interrupted by Aokiji. Wait, you said, Straw Hat Pirates. What is that? 95. Aokiji looked confused. A certain pirate group from East Blue. As an admiral, it is naturally impossible for him to pay attention to all the pirate information in the entire sea. The ones that really caught his eye were at least those big pirates who offered hundreds of millions of rewards. Smoker was silent for a moment, then continued, it's a new pirate group, but that's not the point. The point is, I found an extremely dangerous character in it. Dangerous. Aokiji sat back on the sofa and calmly tossed a stamp. How dangerous is it? His attitude was casual. After all, for his admiral. There are only a few people who can be called dangerous in this sea. No, this person is different. Smoker's voice was solemn. I fought him before, but I was restrained by just one face-to-face, and I couldn't even use the fruit ability. Oh, Aokiji's voice paused slightly. Smoker is his friend. He's also well aware of Smoker's abilities. Anyway, that's also the Logia demon fruit power. How could anyone in East Blue easily defeat a Logia capable? Smoker exhaled a puff of smoke and said solemnly, the pressure that guy gave me is no weaker than that of you admirals. That's why he wants to explain the situation directly to Aokiji. If you say this directly to your immediate boss, that guy is impossible to believe. For a while, there was silence in the office. Aokiji was silent for a while, and then slowly said, I see, you don't need to worry about this for now. 99. He knew Smoker's character and wouldn't make such a joke. Hanging up the phone, Aokiji went straight out to the marshal's office. After a while, in the marshal's office, 6 high-ranking marines gathered. Akainu sat arrogantly, Kizaru crossed Erlang's legs with a look of absent-mindedness, and Aokiji narrated the information he had just heard. Crane Vice Admiral sat on the chair with a calm face. Only Garp, sitting next to Sengoku, kept chewing the senbei, making a click, click sound. So, that's about it, Aokiji finished, sitting back on the sofa. Enough. Sengoku had a tic-tac-toe shaped vein on his forehead, and punched Garp's head. I've endured you for a long time. Garp got up from the ground. What's the matter, old man, isn't it just eating some senbei from you, cheapskate? Sengoku said with a cold face. The pirate group that the guy Kuzan said just now belongs to, the leader is called Luffy. 9. Quote. Garp blinked, his face stiffened. Cough, what, you guys talk. Quote. HMPH, Sengoku snorted coldly before saying seriously. Kuzan, the person you mentioned just now is called Chen, right? How much is the bounty now? Kuzan shrugged, I don't know. A bounty from East Blue's little pirate, how could he know? I know, the Crane Vice Admiral on the chair smiled softly. His name is Chen, one of the cadres of the Straw Hat Pirates. The bounty is 28 million Baileys, and their captain is only 30 million Baileys. 28 million. Sengoku narrowed his eyes. Before this person has never shown a reputation. A figure comparable to Admiral in Kuzan's description. Will it be silent on the sea? And they Marine, don't have any information about this person. This is obviously very unreasonable. Before she knew it, Sengoku fell into the same confusion as the redhead. HMPH, it's just a pirate, Akainu said solemnly, no matter who it is, just sweep the trash can. Kizaru calmly picked his nails, pouted his mouth, and said strangely, oh, it's so scary. If that's the case, let's go for a walk. Sengoku shook his head and chose the fastest way to solve his confusion. You guys, who would like to go? 35. All present here are Marines' top-tier combat power. Even Crane Vice Admiral, the Marine General Staff, is a resourceful general. He can also chase down Doflamingo to the point where there is no way to the sky and no way to enter the ground, which shows his fighting power. Let me go, Aokiji said, it's the information I brought anyway. Several people in the office cast unexpected glances. After all, Aokiji is the type who will never wake up if he can fall asleep on weekdays. Just look at his declaration of justice, lazy justice. Okay, Sengoku nodded. We have paid enough attention to dispatching an admiral. Admiral, representing, is the highest combat power of naval headquarters. A symbol of marine strength and justice. It is also the absolute force that Marine relies on to oppress the sea. Every admiral holds a golden phone bug, and has the right to launch a buster call at any time. Destroy any location without notifying superiors. Such existence, the more significance is actually deterrence, and few will be dispatched directly. Now Marine dispatched an admiral directly, which can be regarded as expressing enough attention to Chen. East Blue, in a sea near the Grand Line. Going Merry is driving on the sea. Hey, what's that? Usopp yelled, pointing to the sea in the distance. Oh, did you find anything? The crowd gathered around. On the sea in the distance, a small wooden boat is mooring quietly, and there are many seabirds circling above the wooden boat. It's a man, Nami exclaimed suddenly. A small figure was lying on the small wooden boat. Woo, Luffy came alive, one hand grabbed the pole of the boat and stretched, and then suddenly ejected. In the blink of an eye, he captured the people on the wooden boat in the distance. It's a brown-haired little loli, but he's passed out. After a while, in the cabin, little loli finally woke up. You're awake, Nami laughed. Phew, after realizing that he was saved, little loli patted his chest in relief. Don't worry, we rescued you, Lu Chen leaned against the window and looked at her. What is your name? Why are you drifting on the sea alone? Did you suffer a shipwreck? There was a strange power in his calm tone, as if it could soothe the soul. Little Loli was stunned for a moment, but still said, my name is Abyss, and I escaped from a marine warship. Marine? Lu Chen frowned. Why arrest you? Abyss hesitated. Although she didn't know why, she had an inexplicable sense of trust in the person in front of her. But this is too important. Forget it. Needless to say, it doesn't matter. Nami waved. Come and eat. You must be very hungry after drifting for so long. Chapter 66 Mangekyo. The power to destroy the world. Sea King's Lair. The next day, the sun was shining. On the deck of Going Merry, everyone is training. Zoro is swimming in the water, Sanji is leaping, Usopp is obsessed with ammo research, and Luffy is gagging. Only Lu Chen, who was lying on the side of the boat, and Nami, who had finished meditating, were chatting with Abyss. My hometown is Warship Island, Abyss said with her head lowered, but those marines went to the island and took me away. Well, what a poor little fellow. Nami reached out and rubbed her head. Lu Chen on the side of the boat suddenly said, are you demon fruit power? 35. Abyss eyes widened. How did you know? Well, that kind of special fluctuation, my eyes will record it, Lu Chen smiled lightly. Okay, Abyss simply admitted, nodded her head and said, I have eaten a fruit called Whisper, so I can talk to animals. That sounds like a tasteless fruit ability. Whoa. The urgent sound of the current sounded, and Zoro jumped up from the water. Hey. Several warships are chasing behind. Everyone on the deck quickly got up and looked back. Sure enough, several warships were sailing on the sea in the distance, and the target was them. Quick, steer, 973, speed up. Nami hurriedly shouted. For a time, Going Merry and the warships in the rear began to flee. These warships are really nothing more than branch marines. But the trouble is, this is the sea. The shelling of several warships could have sunk the Going Merry directly. Lu Chen didn't take action either, because he remembered this plot. If my memory serves me correctly, Going Merry will then be chased by these warships and drive into the calm belt. And it happens that the most calm belt is Sea Kings. And, all of them are oversized Sea Kings. Zoro's training plan is to fight a large Sea Kings. And, in the depths of Lu Chen's pupils, there was a scarlet light looming. I just want to test the effect of Sharingan on these large Sea Kings. If his predictions were right, to a certain extent, he may possess the ability of one of the three ancient weapons, the Poseidon. Of the three ancient weapons, none of them claims to be capable of destroying the world. And the ability of Poseidon is to summon and command the Sea Kings. Soon, the warships were thrown out of sight. Woo, shake it. Usopp breathed a sigh of relief. How could first run into marine in a place like this? What a pity. Worse yet, our ship has not moved. Zoro looked around. Is it .55? Nonsense. Sanji lit a cigarette. We are sailboats. How can we move if there is no wind? 5. It's over. Nami also found the blind spot. We're at the calm belt. Calm belt. Usopp touched his chin. Are you at the Grand Line? What a joke. You don't even have this common sense. Nami roared. The calm belt is a special sea area on both sides of the Grand Line. There is no wind here, and it is also the lair of the Sea Kings. 9. Most of the Sea Kings that haunt the world are mostly small Sea Kings. But calm belt is different. The Sea Kings here are at least large, and there are even super large Sea Kings with a body size of over 5,000 meters. Sea Kings of that level can even swallow the island in one bite. Not to mention their tiny ship. Go get the oars and paddle back to where you were before. Nami shouted. Wait, Sea Kings. Zoro's eyes suddenly became sharp, and his hand unconsciously pressed the handle of the knife on his waist. Isn't his training these days just for this moment? Do you want to fight the Sea Kings at a time like this? Nami's eyes widened. This is the lair of the Sea Kings. I can't even count them. How could there be a Sea Kings against you? At this time, crash. 35. The sound of incomparably turbulent water sounded in the ears of everyone. Going Merry slowly lifted off into the sky. Shadows like giant monsters slowly poked their bodies out of the sea. And Going Merry, who was sitting on one of the large hippo-shaped Sea King's heads, was pushed into the air. Nami's face was pale. This time, it's really troublesome. Zoro also frowned. There are too many. If it's just one or two heads, he can still try to fight. But this amount, he can do nothing. Little lowly Abyss was calm. Should I try to talk to them? The fruit of her whispers is that she can talk to animals. But the effect is actually just to convey their own heart sounds to the hearts of animals. An animal must voluntarily communicate with her so that she can read its mind. And it can't hear the voices of humans and some species, and can't carry out complex conversations and commands. It just so happens that the IQs of the large Sea Kings are very high, and they are not within the scope of communication. It's useless, I'll come. Lu Chen's voice lingered, the space around him suddenly distorted, and the person disappeared directly from the place. In the next moment, above many large Sea Kings, black figures appeared out of thin air. Moo, a cow-shaped Sea King spotted him, looking up suspiciously. Come on, a dazzling scarlet suddenly rose in Lu Chen's eyes. The strange blood-colored pattern slowly rotated, and the huge pupil power poured out. With the terrifying pupil power of the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan as its foundation, a wide-ranging illusion is suddenly activated. Lu Chen's mouth murmured softly. 1, 2, 3, 4. Every time he counts. On the sea, the eyes of a behemoth will turn scarlet. Finally, success. Lu Chen stopped using the illusion. The pupil strength is not small. If he was just an ordinary Mangekyo Sharingan, he would definitely lose a lot of eyesight by doing this. Mangekyo's illusion is a natural enemy-like ability for large beasts such as tailed beasts. However, there is a difference between the world's large sea kings and tailed beasts. Therefore, maintaining this control requires a lot of pupil power. It seems that I still can't replace Poseidon. Lu Chen touched his chin and pondered. Indeed, after all, Poseidon can summon the large sea kings all over the world, but I can only forcefully control it. Maybe I can become Little Poseidon. Not to mention the whole world. The number of large sea kings inhabiting these two calm belts is beyond the imagination of countless people. Looking at it this way, it's no nonsense that Poseidon has the ability to destroy the world. Like those super large sea kings Zero. As long as hundreds of heads are summoned, even the red line will definitely be tossed down. Although he can't do it to destroy the world, but destroying a country is easy. Lu Chen shook his head, lost this thought, and returned to going merry between the space distortions. At this moment, everyone on the deck stared blankly at this scene. The behemoths that covered the sky and the sun all stood silently on the spot, staring at a pair of scarlet and demonic eyes. This, Usopp gasped, as this solved. He even died this time. It's amazing. Little lowly Abyss also opened her mouth slightly, her eyes full of shock. The cigarette in Sanji's mouth was shaking. Is it that simple? Nami took a deep breath. These are large sea kings. She didn't dare to imagine how terrifying things would happen if Lu Chen manipulated these sea kings to attack ships and islands. Pat. Lu Chen landed on the deck and looked at Zoro. Now, you can choose who to fight. Huh. Zoro paused, then reacted, his eyes swept to the behemoths on the sea. These large sea kings are all under control. He only needs to pick one as an opponent and have a chance to complete the training program. That's it. Zoro stepped on the deck and looked at the hippo-shaped sea kings below. That is, the big guy who pushed Going Merry into the air. Okay. Lu Chen nodded, his scarlet eyes brightened. Boom, boom, boom. For a time, all the other large sea kings around began to retreat. The giant hippo also slowly lowered its head and put the Golden Mary back on the sea. Afterwards, the Golden Mary sailed away, leaving only a small wooden boat where Zoro was standing silently. Zoro, I'm going to release its control. Lu Chen's voice came leisurely. 39. Zoro's eyes are calm, and the long knife around his waist is slowly drawn out. Let's start. The next moment, the pupil power is cut off, and the control effect ends. Roar. 1.2. The giant hippo looked around in confusion, completely ignoring Zoro below. After all, the difference in size is huge. A little human in front of a skyscraper is similar to a human being to an ant. Then I'm welcome. Zoro's eyes froze suddenly, the left arm holding the knife bent and raised slightly, and his right hand held the lower limb of the left arm. One knife flow, 36 trouble winds. One after another gust-like flying slashes shot up from the sea. When the giant hippopotamus didn't react at all, it fell with a slash. Laugh. The slashes opened on the huge body, and a lot of blood spilled from the air. Roar. The roar resounded through the sky, and the giant hippo finally noticed the little ants under it under the pain. The huge body moved casually, and it disturbed the water flow in a large area of the sea. Zoro stepped on the small wooden boat, like a leaf in the storm. There is a danger of overturning at any time. Connection failure. It's not over yet. Zoro gritted his teeth, and raised his long knife again. One knife flow 360 trouble wind. Chapter 67 Training is complete. The Great Secret of Longevity. The Four Emperors group is coming to East Blue. Hundreds of blade winds roared through the sky and fell on the giant hippopotamus. A lot of blood spilled out as if they didn't want money. Roar. The giant hippopotamus went mad. Limbs kept rising and falling. The green algae-headed ant on the sea is too small for it to attack accurately. But that doesn't matter. It only needs to directly attack the entire sea area. The sea water in the entire sea area became turbid and flowed rapidly. On the Going Merry deck in the distance, everyone was worried. That's the big sea kings. Usopp's mouth is slightly open. Zoro alone, can he really win? And it's still at sea. Sanji took a deep breath. This is the most unfavorable environment. Although that guy practices water fighting every day, sea kings are born kings of the sea. Woo. Luffy whimpered seriously, as if cheering. Lu Chen stared there deeply, his eyes calm. This scene is like an ant blocking a car and a mayfly shaking a tree. Humans are too small in front of the large sea kings. Whoa. The waves surged into the sky, rolling up terrifying waves hundreds of meters high. Zoro stepped on the small wooden boat, gliding through the huge waves, trying to balance the stability of his body. What a strong vitality. It can only be said that it is indeed a large sea kings. A creature of this size is already the undisputed king of the sea. Ordinary warships and pirate ships will be easily overturned when they encounter them. Just a single move, or O2 Shu, can create a shipwreck. This creature is so unreasonable. But, I'm not one of those weaklings who can only do nothing. Zoro roared as he steered his little wooden boat through the waves. When approaching this giant hippo, his feet slammed violently on the boat, and the whole person jumped straight into the air. All over his body, the fierce swordsman aura was as sharp as a knife. The Dakue Dao and Dao Yi characters have been quietly returned to their sheaths, and one of his hands is on the handle of the knife. Zoro stared at the giant hippopotamus on the opposite side, the fighting intent in his eyes almost turned into reality. Look, breathe, cut through the mouth, pull out, cut off. Saw. In the air, like a gust of wind blowing. Connection failure. Zoro's figure passed through the air. The body of the giant hippo froze in place, as if it had fallen into a state of suspension. One knife Ryu I lion song song. Ah, long wounds were pulled from the neck of the giant hippo. The bright red blood splattered all over the sky, like a fountain. The giant hippo roared in a low voice, as if it had foreseen its future. From the stab wound on the neck, blood was constantly spraying, which could not be stopped. There was a sadness in the roar. Waiting for death is always the most painful. Call. In the sea water, Zoro let out a long breath, then looked up at the giant hippopotamus head in midair, his eyes slightly condensed. Let me free you. After speaking, he swam under the giant hippo and quickly climbed up along its body. Then he stepped on its shoulders, and the whole person jumped into the sky. The word Hidao was placed behind him, and Zoro quickly fell towards the head of the giant hippo. One blade flow flying dragon flame. In the sky, a flying dragon composed of slashes appeared out of thin air. Blue flames lingered on the flying dragon, and it fell from the body of the giant hippopotamus. Huge cut marks spread from top to bottom. In the slash marks, the turquoise high-temperature flame is burning, and it will not go out until the target is completely burned out. It's over. Chen smiled faintly on the deck. It wasn't until his voice fell that other people around could react. That's right, it's over. The large sea kings, like a mountain, have been completely annihilated by Zoro. Oh, Usopp cheered directly. Zoro really won. That guy. Sanji couldn't help but laugh. Nami patted his chest in relief. Huh, I was really nervous before. Luffy jumped straight up, his face excited. Ding. Detected that the current training plan is completed. Close black lens bracket. Training object. Roronoa Zoro. Close black lens bracket. Training result. Successful. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Ding. Host has acquired a new skill. Kaden Kyokutsu Shikai. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Ding. Host has been rewarded. Zanpakuto Kaden Kyokutsu. Close black lens bracket. Open black lens bracket. Hint. You need to call your real name to liberate Zanpakuto's true form and power. After Master Bankai, you can perform Shikai without singing the liberation language. Close black lens bracket. The cold mechanical sound of the system resounded in Chen's mind. The next moment, he felt that there was a lot of knowledge about Kaden Kyokutsu in his mind inexplicably. Wow. With the sound of the water, Zoro swam back and jumped onto the deck. As soon as he got on the boat, everyone crowded around. Zoro, good job. Beautiful play. You killed even the large sea kings. However, Zoro turned a deaf ear to these compliments, couldn't wait to sit on the ground, and stretched out his hands seriously. 4 words came out of his mouth. Kaden Kyokutsu. 35. Connection failure. The next second, 2 knives, one long and one short, fell into Zoro's hands. There was a kind of enthusiasm in his eyes that was like treating a lover, and his hands were stroking the knife. Several people around looked at each other in dismay, and had nothing to say about this kind of knife idiot. Wait. Zoro's hands suddenly froze, and his eyes slowly widened. He thought of the scene he saw in Chen's fantasy at that time. When Kyoraku Shunsui appears, a mature woman and a young girl are standing beside him. Aren't those 2 women the manifestations of Kaden Kyokutsu? For a while, he felt that what he was touching was not the knife, but the girl's skin. What's wrong with you? Nami looked at him strangely. Because now Zoro's expression is very strange. That kind of expression that loves good knives, but has some inexplicable scruples, interprets the word, tangled, vividly. The corners of Zoro's eyes twitched slightly, and he opened his mouth but couldn't say anything, as if he was stuck in his throat. Only Chen saw his embarrassment. He calmly walked behind Zoro and patted him on the shoulder. It's alright, just get used to it. That guy Kyoraku Shunsui even let his knife accompany him to drink. 9. These are just small issues. Chen clapped his hands and attracted everyone's attention. Okay, this matter has been resolved, let's go back to the previous sea area first. Calm belt is windless. While going merry as a sailboat, it is naturally impossible to sail in the calm belt. Of course, if Chen wants to, he can drive a Sea Kings and drag them to the Grand Line. But before that, he has an important problem to solve. Chen's eyes turned to the little lowly Abyss on the deck. Target, Battleship Island, send Abyss back first. He remembered correctly. On the Battleship Island, there is a 1,000-year-old dragon, and it may be the last 1,000-year-old dragon in this world. What's interesting is that the Millennium Dragon involves an ultimate secret, longevity. Countless people in the world are seeking longevity. Among them, the 5 elders of world government and others bear the brunt. After all, the more powerful one is, the more difficult it is to give up his life. Otherwise, the ancient emperors would not ask the immortals to ask. Otherwise, the world government will not tirelessly pursue Op fruit. It is because of the ultimate skill after the awakening of Op fruit, immortality surgery. Give a person eternal life at the cost of the life of the able. This is the only known and definite means of longevity in the world. As for the Millennium Dragon, countless people only regard it as a legend. The only person who has really seen the Millennium Dragon is this little lowly named Abyss. At this time, it was a deserted island dozens of miles away from Warship Island. Pat. Wooden slippers stepped on the ground, and the red-haired man in a black cape held a marine's collar and asked lightly, "Where is the Straw Hat crew you said?" On the ground 973 not far away, there was also a man with purple hair and sunglasses, who was beaten so badly that he fell to the ground. They were Marine who had chased after Luffy's group. Ordered by Admiral Nelson to follow the trail of the Millennium Dragon. Because he lost the whereabouts of Luffy's group, he was ready to return to Gunkanjima and wait. Unfortunately, before the rabbit could wait, the lion came to the door. Four emperors. The purple-haired man on the ground trembled. How could you possibly appear in a place like East Blue? He was hired by Admiral Nelson to help find the Millennium Dragon, and is also the demon fruit power. Knowledge is naturally not bad. At a glance, he recognized who the man in front of him was. After all, this person's wanted notices are posted all over the world. The pirates standing not far away, each one of them is a well-known wicked person on the list. A whole regiment of 4 emperors, come to East Blue. Marine's eyes were full of fear. I really don't know, they were in the calm belt. Calm belt. Shanks frowned slightly and let go of his hand. With a character like that, there shouldn't be any problem. Marine landed on the ground, but his body was stiff, and he had no intention of running away. What a joke. This is one of the 4 emperors of the Kunlun Grand Line. Run with what? That is, do you think they'll go back to that warship island? Shanks asked again. Marine swallowed his saliva subconsciously, nodded quickly and said, yes, that's right. Tisk. Shanks smacked his mouth, turned and waved, guys, set sail, to Warship Island. Soon, the huge red force started to move towards the direction of Gunkanjima. As for that Admiral Nelson, as early as when he knew that the 4 emperors were coming in person, he had already fainted from fright. Chapter 68 Bankai. The Secret of the World. Battle. Redhead. On the deck, Chen shouted in his heart. System, customization, training Zoro, Bankai of Master, Kaden Kyokutsu. The next moment, the cold mechanical sound resounded in my mind again. Ding. The training plan has been drawn up. Close black lens bracket. Training object. Roronoa Zoro. Close black lens bracket. Training target. Bankai of Master, Kaden Kyokutsu. Close black lens bracket. Training plan. Have daily spiritual communication with Kaden Kyokutsu, so that it tends to synchronize with the fluctuation of your own soul. Close black lens bracket. Obviously, this training plan is much more mysterious than the previous one. At least after Chen told it to Zoro, Zoro's expression was obviously blank. Spirit, soul fluctuation. He scratched his hair, his face full of question marks. What is that? And he stared at the Zanpakuto in his hand, and became more and more confused. The knife, how do I communicate with it? Well, Chen shrugged, don't you all swordsmen like to communicate with your own knives? I can't teach you this question. Hey, we're here. Usopp, who was holding the binoculars in the bow, shouted suddenly. Are you there? Chen raised his eyebrows and stepped forward. Wait, that ship is. Usopp held the telescope with a dull face. It's big. In the field of vision, a large pirate ship was parked on the shore of Gunkanjima. There are also 3 red marks on the skull of the pirate flag. This flag. Zoro also stood up, frowning slightly. It shouldn't be a pirate from East Blue, but it gives me an inexplicable sense of familiarity. As a pirate hunter, Zoro knows a lot about East Blue's many pirate groups. In front of this flag, he was sure that he should have seen it somewhere. Moreover, this kind of big ship must be a certain, big pirate. I know who it is. Chen raised his hand and rubbed his temples. However, how did that guy come to East Blue? And he's still on this warship island. That powerful aura that was as strong as ultimate, he could clearly see it even from a distance. No doubt, this guy should have come here specifically to wait for them. No, to be precise, you should wait for yourself. It's okay, just lean over. Chen waved his hand and said, that guy won't shoot at you. You know the pirate opposite? Nami asked suspiciously. No, it should be said that I have heard of it. Chen chuckled. This is the first time we have met. Looking at Chen's calm face, Nami could only shrug. Then let's go. After a while, whoa, in the sound of the water, Going Merry also approached the shore of Battleship Island. On the shore, a figure was standing quietly, as if waiting for them for a long time. The figure looked up and smiled. Yo, Luffy. 99. The red short hair is particularly eye-catching in the sun. Woo. Luffy on the bow of sheep's head suddenly widened his eyes. Woo. Hey, what's wrong with your mouth? Shanks grinned. It's not because it's too wordy and annoying, so it's sealed. Woohoo. Luffy protested, fist raised. He is practicing. A long voice sounded from the shore. In the distortion of space, Chen walked out slowly. It's you. Shanks turned his head, without showing the slightest surprise. I've seen your wanted notice. Seriously, 28 million is too low for you. Chen said calmly. Not low, after all, my captain is only 30 million Baileys. That's what makes me wonder. Shanks grinned, revealing a big white fang. Why would a strong man like you follow Luffy's side? Can you explain it to me? Brother Chen. Chen was silent for a while, and then said, then, why did you cut off your arm in East Blue in the first place? Shank's expression stopped and his smile faded. Well, it looks like you know me well. Chen nodded. After all, he is one of the dignified four emperors, so it is not surprising that his reputation spread across the sea. The wanted orders of the four emperors can be said to be all over the Grand Line in the world. That's why Zoro felt familiar before. However, because the distance between the four emperors and East Blue was too far, he didn't think of going there for a while. My arm. Shanks glanced at his empty left arm and said with emotion. This is a bet, it's a bet on the hope of the future world. I'm the same as you. Chen glanced at going merry. It's not the present, but the future. Shanks frowned deeply. Looks like, what do you know? He was referring to a real secret that only a handful of people knew. Such is Luffy's particularity. It is also like the fate of the D family. Another example, the great secret 800 years ago. And that vacant 100 years of history. You know, he knows these secrets because he has followed Roger to the final land. What makes Shanks uncertain is how much the powerful man he has never heard of knows, and what kind of position he has. I do know a lot. Chen smiled lightly. Shanks took a deep breath, and then lowered his voice. Since you know, you shouldn't be with that kid all the time. There is a monster-level powerhouse who may not be weaker than himself. How is Luffy going to grow up? At least 90% of the difficulties and dangers encountered along the way, this black-haired youth can easily sweep away. Introduce myself, Chen suddenly said. I am a trainer, and I can help people gain different strengths through training. Huh, Shanks froze. Simply put, I have the ability to make them a real powerhouse, and it will be faster than you expect. Chen's voice is also slightly lowered. For example, the fruit of Nika. Shanks' pupils tightened sharply, and he waved quickly, stop. Then he squatted directly to the ground, his right hand constantly grabbing his hair. Obviously, this matter made him extremely tangled. Finally, Shanks got up and looked at the black-clothed youth in front of him with a complicated expression. All in all, I can't trust you directly. What trainer? He has never even heard of it. You should know that I have no malicious intentions, Chen said indifferently. Otherwise, this ship would not be able to sail out of East Blue. Shanks is naturally aware of this as well. If a powerhouse of this level had malicious intentions, Luffy's group would have been drowned long ago. After all, along the way, he has too many opportunities to shoot. As long as Luffy is killed, this hope will be completely killed. All the layout will be meaningless. Therefore, this person in front of him cannot be the enemy. Huh, Shanks exhaled, his eyes narrowed slightly. I don't know what your so-called training is, but at least, I have to make sure you are qualified first. The so-called training effect can be proved by time. What he needs to prove now is whether the person in front of him has the qualifications to Tron. Not everyone can be the guide of One Piece. Well, it will still develop like this. Chen slapped his lips in surprise. So did the dragon before. Come to the door without saying a word, and have a fight first. The way the world's powerhouses communicate is always so simple and rude. Just like that sentence said, when the four emperors meet, the sky is torn apart. Of course, another sentence was derived. The four emperors meeting ceremony, the five emperors can't afford it. Backquote. It can't be used here, Chen said, come with me. In the distortion of space, his figure disappeared directly in place, heading towards the mountain in the depths of Warship Island. This time, they were not fighting between life and death, just tentatively. So don't worry about spilling over here. Hey, Shanks smiled and waved to Red Force on the shore. I'll be back when I go. After shouting, he also started to follow. On Red Force, a group of pirates are leaning on the railing to watch a play. You said, will the captain be deflated this time? I heard that person is very powerful, but our captain is the four emperors, so it's impossible to lose, right? Ha ha ha. Hee hee, it would be interesting if they really lost. The dignified four emperors actually lost in East Blue, and the whole ocean would be shaken if they spread it. 5. Hey, you guys, if you really lose, the captain's face will be ugly, right? Ha 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 ha. The pirates had no intention of cheering for their boss at all. On the contrary, they were all joking at random. The atmosphere was rather relaxed, nothing like a four emperors regiment. And Nuo Jiaohao on the other side. On the Golden Mary, everyone's faces were quite confused. Usopp murmured, does Chen really know those pirates? Zoro also remembered where he had seen the pirate flag before. That's the red hair of the four emperors. Stupid. As he spoke, cold sweat was already oozing out from his forehead. As a pirate hunter, he may not understand others. But it is impossible not to understand these real big pirates who are shaking the world. Sigh. The sound of a breath of cold air resounded on the deck. Even Luffy followed suit with a surprised look. Hey, you know him too, right? Why are you still so shocked? Nami looked at Luffy helplessly. Woo. Zoro covered his forehead and translated. He said that he only knew Shanks, not the four emperors. At this time, on the mountain, the two figures stood opposite each other. Then let's get started. Shanks' expression slightly straightened. Put out all your strength, Chen is swollen. Boom. A terrifying aura suddenly burst out from his body. In the surrounding air, circles of air waves were pushed away. Conqueror's Hockey. Chapter 69 Qualification of the King. Conqueror's Entanglement. Cheating with each other. Boom. Over the Warship Island, there was a roar of thunder. Dark lightning, jumping in the clouds, like the lion majesty who chooses to eat. This is not the lightning of nature, but the vision generated after conquerors is powerful to ultimate. With this terrifying aura alone, more than 99% of the people in the entire sea can hardly move when facing red hair. This is conquerors. Only one of the millions of people will be born with a king's qualification C. According to the second point of middle school, that is, everyone who awakens conquerors has the potential to become a king. Jung. The long sword, Griffin, was drawn out of its scabbard. Come on. 35 Shanks suddenly raised his head and looked at the figure in black. Suddenly, a pair of scarlet and demonic eyes came into his sight, causing his spirit to be in a trance for a moment. Only then did he find out. His own conquerors didn't seem to affect this person at all. Even the air waves from conqueror's coercion passed directly through the man's body. It's an amazing force, Chen praised. It is only conquerors who can create such a terrifying scene based on spirit alone. Boom. Shanks stomped hard on the ground with his feet and flew forward. The earth and rocks along the way were splashed and sputtered, forming a violent track. Saw. The sound of breaking through the air resounded. The long knife Griffin crossed a graceful arc in the air and slashed down. Shanks swept directly behind Chen. Sure enough, it can't be cut. Shanks turned around and frowned slightly. I felt it before, you don't seem to be really standing here. 35. Under that level of conqueror's coercion, it is impossible for someone to not change their color and not be affected in the slightest. Even the same owners of conquerors, like Whitebeard et al. When facing him, conquerors will also break out for a collision. This is inevitable. Your senses are very sharp, 55 Chen said indifferently. Oh, what a troublesome ability, Shanks grinned, his arms and long sword suddenly covered with a dark layer of advanced armament color. Chen waved his hand gently, and the short sword from Kaden Kyokutsu appeared in his hand. He raised his short sword and shook his head. For me, your hockey, it's also very troublesome. Shanks couldn't cut him. But again, he has a hard time breaking the defense of senior armament hockey. Just replace it with ordinary people. But for monsters of the level of 4 emperors, their hockey is already powerful to a certain ultimate. It is definitely not something that can be broken by ordinary means. In other words, the battle between 4 emperors, level powerhouses is itself a battle of attrition. Because they can't break through each other's defenses by themselves. Saw. In the violent sound of breaking the air, the figures of the two crossed again. At the moment when Shanks' blade passed by, Chen was realized by hollow, and the short sword in his hand was like a life-threatening scythe, slashing down. When the symphony of gold and iron resounded, Shanks turned sideways in time and blocked the knife with his right arm covered in armed color. If not, the knife just now would have pierced through his right chest. Have you seen the color? Chen was not surprised at all. In the previous battle with the dragon, he had already recognized this. These monster-level powerhouses have a very terrifying ability to perceive danger. This is the 4 emperors. The indestructible armament hockey. Observation hockey, who predicts the opponent's attacking intentions. And conqueror's hockey, which can deter countless creatures and even erupt with terrifying power. Conqueror's hockey, no shortcoming. Tisk, worthy of being the emperor of the sea, Chen smacked his mouth. Shanks turned around on the ground, his eyes became more dignified, but his words were offline. If you are equal, I will give it to you. Chen smiled lightly. This position can't be given up by letting it go. Below the throne of every sea emperor, there are countless piles of bones. Without the prestige of convincing the sea, how can others recognize you as an emperor? Especially in the chaotic environment of New World. Those who are not strong enough have already been swallowed up to the point where there are no bones left. Seriously, I admire you a little, Shanks grinned suddenly, or join us, and I'll make you the vice president. Chen raised his eyebrows and said lightly, you are already an old guy, and the future belongs to young people. Huh, Shanks blinked, am I an old guy? He, who is less than 40 years old, is actually called an old guy. Wait, I'm being rejected. Shanks responded. The dignified 4 emperors were actually despised by others. Well, Shanks shrugged, it doesn't matter, but you keep hiding like this, okay. 35. Without a head-on collision, it is difficult to be recognized. Yes, Chen nodded slightly. Then, let's change the fighting method. In the scarlet eyes, the strange blood-colored pattern suddenly spun. The majestic pupil power poured out, and chakra passed wildly. The azure blue armored giant condensed out of thin air in midair. The posture of the god of war, the wings are spread, the swords are in the air, and the awe-inspiring breath is blowing towards the face. Susanoo complete body. Shanks' eyes slowly widened, and the corners of his mouth grinned. That's interesting. He also quietly covered the senior armament hockey. Boom. The violent slash fell to the ground, shaking the entire mountain somewhat. 2 unbelievably strong figures fought a terrifying battle on the top of the mountain. Fortunately, this is not a life and death battle, so the two are still in control. Did not let the aftermath of the battle spread too far. The other side. The shore of Battleship Island. ACBC. The people on both boats were watching the scene from the top of the mountain. Dark lightning jumped in the sky, and violent vibrations continued to come. This is not fighting, it's clearly a natural disaster. Usopp held the binoculars blankly, it's louder than thunder. Zoro held the long knife with a serious expression. Chen, is he already so powerful? That's the 4 emperors. On this ship, perhaps only he has a clearer understanding of the level of 4 emperors. Kun is in the second half of the Grand Line, a terrible existence that even Marine and world government can't touch. Simply put, every 4 emperors is one of the strongest people in this world. The strongest. Zoro stared at the top of the mountain, and whispered in his mouth. Wait, this mountain, I will climb it sooner or later. 95. Woohoo, Luffy asked from the side. Why do you want to fight? Zoro turned his head and glanced at him, also puzzled. Maybe it's because, the meeting between the strong, that's how it is. He remembered when he was in the restaurant on the sea before. When Hawkeye arrived, he also fought with Chen. Luffy fell silent thoughtfully. Only little lowly Abyss has been looking at Gaoshan worriedly, as if she was worried about something. On the Red Force not far away, the pirates of the 4 Emperors regiment were also surprised. Is it actually going to fight to such an extent? One of mine has enough high regard for that person, but I didn't expect him to really compete with the captain. Does this mean that there is another monster in the sea? Even the Vice President Beckman shook his head and said, it was unexpected and reasonable. Don't look at the fact that they always like to tease and joke about their captains. But in fact, everyone knows what kind of character their captain is. That's the 4 Emperors. A character who stands at the top of countless pirates. A monster of a veritable monster. Being able to fight against his own captain is enough to show that the opposite is also an out-and-out monster. Mountain top. Cracks spread all over the mountain, and the smoke and dust continued to roll up, obscuring the sight. When 35. With a deafening symphony of gold and iron, Shank's figure suddenly flew out of the smoke. There was a little shock in his eyes. Obviously there is no armed color, but it is so hard. At first, he thought that the azure blue Valkyrie giant was shaped by some kind of fruit ability. It wasn't until I got my hands on it that I found out that the strength of that thing was incredible. Indestructible, powerful, fast action, volley. This is definitely not something that fruit power can shape. Moreover, the 2 azure blue giant knives are even more exaggerated. With one knife, it seems to be able to split the mountain. The power spread out, and even the clouds in the sky were shattered. Even with his armament hockey attainments, it is inevitable that he will be shocked under hard resistance. When double swords, Shank's eyes froze suddenly, and the long knife, Griffin seemed to have pitch black liquid lightning jumping up. The next moment, the huge Wushan giant suffered a heavy blow. Conqueror's Wrap. This is a high-level application of Conquerors, and only a few people in the whole sea can display it. Even if you don't touch the opponent, you can actually attack. At the beginning, Roger used this to perform God Avoidance, which killed Odin in seconds. A crack spread across the body of the Valkyrie giant, but it was repaired by the huge pupil power and chakra in the next moment. It's the power of cheating. Chen's eyes suddenly met Shanks' eyes, then I'll cheat once. In the scarlet eyes, the rich blood seemed to overflow. Next moment, Shanks' pupils tightened suddenly, and a strong premonition of crisis hit him, causing him to dodge sideways subconsciously. Kamui. The space was suddenly distorted, as if it had become a piece of paper, crumpled, and then thrown into the trash can of the different space. Tick-tock. A wisp of blood fell to the ground. Chapter 70 Tearing the defenses of the 4 Emperors. The Old Dragon, the secret 800 years ago. If Conqueror's entanglement is redhead cheating, then Kamui is Chen's cheating skills. This pupil technique directly acts on the space, and the biggest feature is that it ignores defenses. Once twisted, Gedo statue's arm. It has also directly penetrated the truth-seeking ball barrier of 6 paths Madara minus. You know, the barrier of the truth-seeking ball, but the 4 Ten-Tails tailed beast bomb resonance explosions did not break open. For Kamui, evaluation of Book of Array, Beyond Causality and Horizon, the eyes in the realm of the gods. Evaluation of Book of People, the different dimension in the horizon, the dazzling space pupil technique. You can see the bug of this space pupil technique. Unreasonable, ignoring all defenses. Because of this, even the armament hockey attainments of the 4 Emperors level were directly torn apart by Kamui. Cough cough. Shanks stopped and glanced at his waist. A piece of meat was missing there. The blood was dripping slowly. There was no sign, and his armed color didn't play any role. In just a moment, this piece of meat just disappeared out of thin air. Really? Shanks let out a sigh of relief. Am I the 4 Emperors, or are you the 4 Emperors? It doesn't matter. Chen shook his head calmly and said bluntly, it's just a tentative battle of strength. Yes, this is not a life or death battle. The fight between the two is also controlled. Otherwise, the outbreak of Shanks' conquerors alone will affect everyone on this warship island. Jung. The long knife. Griffin is sheathed. Forget it. Let's stop here. Shanks covered the wound on his waist with a smile on the corner of his mouth. At least I have confirmed that you are indeed qualified. This qualification is not only a guide for the future One Piece. At the same time, it is also the leader of the hope for the future world. In the air, the azure blue martial god giant slowly dissipated. Chen, dressed in black, landed. Since your business is over, I will go to do another one. Huh, Shanks froze for a moment. What, 35? The space suddenly distorted, and Chen's figure disappeared from the spot. This guy, how mysterious. Shanks frowned and pondered for a moment, but to no avail, he simply went down the mountain. Sure. The pirates on Red Force watched their boss come back, and all shouted excitedly. Hey, Captain, did you win or lose? Looking at your face, you won't really lose, will you? Ha 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 ha. 39. Huh, by the way, why only the captain came back alone? You won't be killed directly by the captain, will you? Shanks waved his hand and shouted carelessly. Okay, that guy said he was going to do something after the fight and left. As for winning or losing, Shanks smiled freely. I lost. It's just a tentative fight, winning or losing doesn't matter at all. For a time, the red-haired pirates all laughed. Ha ha ha, no, you really lost. No, since the captain lost, he must have a party tonight and drink until dawn to let him go. It's a shame that the dignified four emperors would lose to East Blue, hee hee. Hey, Captain, come up quickly, the wine has been poured for you. 9. Shanks shook his head helplessly. I see, you guys. On the other side of going merry. Everyone looked at each other, some didn't react. Chen won. What about others? Listen to what the redhead means, seems to be going to do something. Usopp scratched his head, his face full of confusion. Could it be? Abi's eyes slowly widened, and her face gradually turned pale. Damn. She obviously realized something, and in a hurry, she was about to jump towards the shore. Nami and the others looked at each other and followed. Obviously, Abis knows something, perhaps related to what Chen is doing. Halfway up the mountain, there is a cave here. A hidden and huge cave. Chen's eyes were still scarlet, and the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan was not closed. In the depths of the cave, a huge aura full of twilight was quietly exuding. Tread, step. Chen walked in step by step, until it was deep, and then stopped. Sure enough. A huge green old dragon caught his eye. The scales and feathers all over his body fell slightly. The most bizarre thing is that its head is actually bald. The old dragon seemed to have reached the end of his lifespan and lay on the ground helplessly. Just opened a pair of turbid dragon eyes and looked at the black-clothed youth in front of him. Chen looked at it calmly. You are dying. Even a fantastic creature like the Millennium Dragon will have its lifespan to come to an end one day. Although their lifespan is longer than the 800 years of world government. Perhaps the vacancy that has been erased for 100 years, they have also witnessed it with their own eyes. But the old dragon in front of him has finally ushered in the end of his life. Let's talk. Chen calmly sat on the ground. Just in time, I also want to ask you some questions, and make a deal with you by the way. 99. Huge pupil power poured out from his eyes. The old dragon did not refuse, of course, it itself could not refuse. The next moment, Chen's spiritual body was already in the spiritual world of Lao Long. Just as Obito went directly into Naruto's spiritual world and communicated with Nine Tails, Chen used the same method. This is an isolated island, and there are many fossils with the same shape as Millennium Dragon on the isolated island. Beyond the isolated island, there is only an endless ocean. This spiritual world seems very lonely and desolate. The old dragon was lying quietly in the center of the isolated island, staring at the sky. Chen walked to the opposite side of it and asked directly, You want to go back to your hometown? The old dragon looked down at him, his eyes were cloudy, and his voice was old and hoarse. That's right. Chen looked around the isolated island. This place is your hometown. 35. The old dragon nodded. Yes, this is the clan of our 1,000-year-old dragon clan. All the 1,000-year-old dragons will come back here every 1,000 years. Chen nodded, and then slowly said, But you are already dying, maybe you won't wait for the 1,000 years to come, why are you so persistent? The old dragon was silent for a long time, and then he said, I'm just too lonely. 1,000 years ago, it dispersed from the other 1,000-year-old dragons. In the past 1,000 years, it has seen only one dragon of its own, and no other of its kind. The old dragon, who has lived alone for 1,000 years, does not want to return to his hometown, but wants to find his own kin. Chen said lightly, I heard that your keel can be made into a longevity medicine. 0. Ask for flowers. Lao Long did not deny it either. Perhaps, are you also here for this? That's right, Chen said unabashedly. This kind of thing, even if you don't need it now, maybe it will be useful in the future. Then let's do it, why waste so much time? Lao Long shook his head slowly. It can feel it. The strength of the person in front of him is not something he can deal with. Not to mention that it is now twilight, even if it is still in its youth, it is difficult to compete. No, I want to make a deal with you, Chen said with a light smile. I will give you the land of the Wei clan, how about you give me a keel? Lao Long paused, as if feeling a little surprised. Okay. Chen made it to the ground. Since the deal is over, let's talk about other things, I have some questions to ask you. 35. Lao Long shook his head and said, In my long life, I have experienced too many things. Many memories have been annihilated in the torrent of time. I remember very little, Lao Long's old voice carried a touch of memory, but you are willing to help me return to the clan, as long as I remember, I will answer you. Its lifespan is too long, spanning thousands of years of history. With the passage of time, many memories have gradually become blurred, and finally completely forgotten. This is an inevitable experience of the longevity species. Of course, there may be some deeply obsessive things that will always be etched in my heart. Such as its clan. Chen didn't care, and asked directly, Do you know world government? World government. Lao Long recalled for a moment, and then said, It seems to have some impressions. 35. Chen's eyes narrowed slightly. What happened in the history before the 20 kings established the world government? He asked. It was the era of the 100 years of history that was erased. Before, Lao Long seemed to remember something, with complicated emotions in his turbid eyes. I only remember that a terrible war broke out. A certain huge dynasty was destroyed. Perhaps a rebellion by betrayer. By the way, Lao Long suddenly opened his eyes wide. I remembered a name that seems to be very important, D. Yes, the D family. Finally, Lao Long shook his head. I didn't participate in it, so I don't know the specific situation, but that war affected the whole sea, and it was only after that the world government. For a time, Lu Chen sat on the ground frowning and pondering. War. Betrayer. 20 kings. Dynasties. Clan D. It seems so. The world government's claim that 20 kings saved the world is not a small problem. Looking at it another way, is there a possibility? It was not the 20 kings who overthrew the tyrannical dynasty. But the 20 kings joined forces to betray and stole the fruits of the huge dynasty. And that dynasty must have a deep connection with the so-called D family. This is a very thoughtful inference. Shaking his head, Lu Chen got up and said, forget it, these things will be confirmed from the historical text stone tablet in the future. Saying that, he put away his pupil power. The consciousness of one person and one dragon returned to the cave. Chapter 70 100 dragons return to their nests, longevity is in hand. Sail into the Grand Line. Seas that violate all common sense. I found it. You are indeed here. A crisp sound came from the entrance of the cave. Lu Chen turned his head to look, and Abyss ran in with Nami and the others. Long Yi. Abyss ran over and hugged the old dragon's head. Are you all right? Quote. Nami behind also widened his eyes. Millennium Dragon. Unbelievable. Usopp also stared blankly. Isn't the Millennium Dragon just a legend? Luffy even rushed up after. Woohoo. Twice, touching and looking at the old dragon's body, his face full of excitement. The Millennium Dragon is a legendary creature. Today they actually saw the real Millennium Dragon alive. I promised it to send it back to my hometown. 99. Lu Chen's voice rang out in the cave. Huh, little Loli turned her head in surprise. How did you know that Lord Long wanted to go back to his hometown? She hurriedly turned her head and used the ability of whispering fruit to communicate with the old dragon. After a while, Abyss stood up from the ground, her expression full of reluctance. Long Yi has already told me, you will take it away. Don't worry, Lu Chen patted her head with a smile. The final destination of the Millennium Dragon is their clan. Every 1,000-year-old dragon will bury itself in the clan when it walks, 973, to the end of its life. And the new Millennium Dragon will also be born from the clan. This is a kind of reincarnation, and it is also the fate of the 1,000-year-old dragon. The dragon-shaped fossils on the isolated island were formed by the weathering of the corpse of the 1,000-year-old dragon. Okay, you guys can wait on this island now, I'll be back as soon as possible. Lu Chen waved his hand, and in his scarlet eyes, blood-colored monster patterns slowly flowed. For a time, the space in the cave distorted. He and the old dragon were sucked into the space Uzumaki and disappeared. Hey, wait, I want to see too. Usopp yells. Yeah, so do we. Sanji also protested. But when they reacted, the figure of one person and one dragon had already been lost in the cave. Really, it's always like this. Nami helplessly covered his forehead. That guy Lu Chen's abilities are too bizarre. Little lowly Abyss folded her hands together, as if she was praying devoutly. I hope Lord Long can really return to his hometown. On the sea, over an unremarkable sea, the space suddenly distorted, and between Uzumaki's rotation, two figures, one person and one dragon, appeared. This is it. Lu Chen calmly glanced at the sea below, his scarlet eyes seemed to be able to see through everything. The Lost Island, the island that floats only once every 1,000 years, is also the clan of your 1,000-year-old dragon. The old dragon didn't react, just looked down quietly. Yan. At this time, there was a roar of dragons from the sky. The black dots slowly enlarged in the distant sky. That is a large number of 1,000-year-old dragons. 100 dragons return home. Crash. In this sea area, a violent vibration suddenly sounded. The waves rolled back, and the waves were choppy. Under the sea, a huge shadow is slowly rising. Lost Island. At this moment, a trace of excitement finally flashed in the turbid eyes of the old dragon. It has found its own clan, and its own kind. The deal is done, Lu Chen said with a smile on his lips. Yin. The old dragon let out a low dragon groan, turned around and moved his dragon tail to Lu Chen's body. Then, I'm welcome. Lu Chen's eyes, the strange pattern slowly twirled. Kamui. Suddenly, the space at one end of the dragon's tail suddenly wrinkled, split, and was sent into a different space. Dragon blood spilled into the sky. But the old dragon didn't care at all. He just used his last strength, flapped his wings, and flew to the floating island below. It's going to be there, into eternal sleep. Farewell. 99. Lu Chen watched the old dragon fall into the Lost Island, and then disappeared into the space distortion. The purpose of this trip has been achieved. Akil, no, it should be said that it is a possibility of longevity. Although he can't use it now, he may use it in the future. At least, the value this thing possesses is immeasurable. People like Five Elders are absolutely willing to pay a huge price for it. The other side, when Nami and the others walked out of the cave, they found that the Red Hair Pirate's ship had already left. Woohoo! Luffy whimpered a few times, seemingly dissatisfied with Shanks and the others leaving without even saying hello. Zoro glanced at him. We'll meet again when we get to the Grand Line. He had a feeling that the Red Hair Pirates came to East Blue, and the target was just Lu Chen. Hat. The footsteps landed, and Lu Chen's figure appeared in front of everyone. Abyss hurriedly asked aloud, "How is the Dragon Lord? Have you found its hometown?" 35. Don't worry, Lu Chen rubbed her hair with a light smile. It has returned to her clan skirt. Huh. Little Loli breathed a sigh of relief and patted his chest. Then I'm relieved. Then, she became happy again. In order to thank you, I invite you to go to the village chief grandpa's house to eat buns. Woohoo. Luffy was the first to jump out in support. If it weren't for the tape to seal his mouth, his saliva would have flowed out. The next day, the shore of Battleship Island. Abyss stood on the shore waving her hands constantly. Goodbye. When you finish walking the Grand Line, be sure to come back to see me. Got it. Nami also smiled and waved. Hey, 35 Usopp wiped his nose. Don't worry, it won't be long. Soon, the Golden Mary disappeared on the sea level and headed towards the Grand Line. Upside Down Mountain, also known as Levi's Mountain. This is where the four seas meet and one of the only ways to get to the Grand Line. In addition, you can only take the Calm Belt. But the Calm Belt is the lair of the large sea kings, and few can navigate it without a hitch. So Upside Down Mountain is basically the only entrance for the four seas pirates to go to the Grand Line. Here we are. Usopp holds the binoculars. Upside Down is ahead. It was a continent made of red clay, and there was no end in sight. The Upside Down Mountain is the intersection of this continent with the four seas and the Grand Line. Crash. The sound of the water is turbulent, and a seawater road extends straight up from the sea, like an upside-down waterfall. This is the only way. Only by rushing up this waterway can you cross the Upside-Down Mountain and reach the Grand Line. Hurry up and steer. Nami shouted. If we hit that continent, we'll be wrecked. Understood. Zoro and Sanji hurried into the control room of the cabin. The current was too turbulent, and the direction of the Golden Mary was swaying under the impact of the current. Lu Chen stood directly at the stern and took a breath. Fire-style fire dragon fire bullet. Boom. A large group of fireballs was spewed out, turned into a flame dragon in midair, and fell to the surface of the water. The huge impact force came back and brought the ship into the channel abruptly. For a time, the whole ship was entangled in the current, heading towards the mountains. It's like riding a roller coaster. After reaching the high point, the ship rushed down quickly. Oh, Usopp exclaimed, nearly blowing the goggles off his head in the oncoming wind. Woohoo. Luffy also pressed his hat and sat on the special seat at the bow, his face full of excitement. This feeling of going downhill is undoubtedly exciting. This is why so many people are not afraid of difficulties, just like riding a bicycle up a hill. Because when going down the mountain, the mood will be very refreshing. Yan. At this moment, a long whale chirping suddenly came from below the waterway. Nami stood on the bow, his pupils clenched suddenly. That's. Usopp on the side also changed his face. How can there be a wall? 99. Idiot. That's not a wall. Sanji's forehead oozes cold sweat. That's a standing whale. It's just that the size of this whale is obviously unbelievably large, comparable to the large sea kings in the Calm Belt. Zoro's eyes also became heavy. If we hit it at our speed, there will only be one result, and it will fall apart directly. Slow down, Nami said urgently. It's too late. Usopp's lips trembled. Are we going to die in the ocean as soon as we get to the Grand Line? That's too bad luck. Worse than the Creek pirates who were chased back to East Blue by Hawkeye. Don't worry. Lu Chen walked to the bow. I'll solve it. Just right. That whale has people and things we need in it. There was a dazzling scarlet in his eyes. Huh. Nami was taken aback. What we need. 1.2 inches, don't you know? Lu Chen smiled lightly. You are a navigator. Why don't you look at your compass first? Nami quickly took out the compass from his arms. His eyes widened. What's going on? The compass is broken. Navigating at sea requires not only a chart, but also a compass to identify the direction. Otherwise, no matter how skilled old navigators are, they will get lost in the boundless sea. Because the only place to look is the sea, and there is no reference. So, after the compass broke, they couldn't even predict where they would sail next. This is the Grand Line, Lu Chen explained calmly. Seasons, weather, ocean currents, wind direction, everything is chaotic here. It may be summer one second, and winter the next. The terrifying sea area where all common sense of sailing does not apply has devoured the lives of countless people who set sail. There is only one thing that can point the way here, and that is the permanent record pointer. Nami blinked. What is that? Always a pointer to a specific island. Lu Chen smiled slightly. In that whale, there is such a thing. Chapter 72 One Piece's Ship Doctor. Route Selection. Devil Sea. Nami's 5-day disease. On the deck of the Golden Mary, Lu Chen's eyes condensed slightly, and the complicated patterns like Mangekyo spun abruptly. In the distance, a scarlet light suddenly appeared in the eyes of the whale that was comparable to the large sea kings. Crashing. Usopp yelled in surprise. What are you panicking about? It's all right. Lu Chen waved his hand. Yan. In the loud whale roar, the giant whale's upright body fell to the sea, and opened its mouth in their direction. Hey, is this okay? It's not a good thing to be swallowed by a whale. Usopp's eyes were about to pop out. I said it. Lu Chen shook his head and said, we need the recording pointer inside the whale to go to the next destination. On the Grand Line, ships without recorded hands are lost in the boundless ocean. Whoa. With the turbulent waters, the boat rushed directly into the whale's mouth. Ah, Usopp raised his head and blinked blankly. Here, how come there are blue sky and white clouds? Did they actually get into the belly of a whale? There's an island there. Nami pointed forward. It was a small island floating on the water with a house built on it. Chen shouted directly. Hey, Crocus. 99. Squeak. The door of the house was slammed open, and a bald old man with weird hair accessories and glasses stepped out. Who? 35 Chen said. Oh 2. Crocus looked at the people on the opposite boat with a puzzled face. You know me. Of course I know. Chen held up his hands, his eyes were meaningful. You are One Piece's ship doctor. Impossible. Crocus's expression changed suddenly. How do you know? Everyone only knew that he was an old man who had kept the lighthouse for decades. But another identity, but almost no one knows. The ship doctor on One Piece Roger's ship. Everyone else on Going Merry was taken aback. He's One Piece's ship doctor. Usopp pointed at the old man opposite, his face full of disbelief. How can this old man look like an ordinary person, but he is actually on the ship of One Piece? Luffy was also silent for a while, and then said, woo woo woo. Zoro covered his forehead and translated. Our captain wants to invite you to be our ship doctor. Do not make jokes. Crocus forced himself to calm down, sat down on a reclining chair and picked up the newspaper. I'm old. No matter how you know my identity, I'm no longer the me I used to be. In other words, if you were to ask about Roger, he wouldn't say anything. I just want to make a deal with you. Chen raised his head and pointed to a metal pipe in the sky. I'll help you catch those two little thieves. How about you give me a recording pointer? Little thief. Crocus looked up, frowning slightly, and immediately seemed to think of something. So it's them, haven't they given up? Nami asked suspiciously, what little thief? Two little thieves who want to hunt down this island whale. Crocus pushed his glasses. I'll take this deal. Very good. As soon as Chen's voice fell, the person disappeared from the place. After a few breaths, the space distorted again, and he had returned to the deck. There are two people in his hands. A funny man with a crown, a beautiful girl with long sky blue hair. At this time, the two were still confused. Here is. What's the situation, Pat? The two were thrown onto the deck by Chen. Hey, who are you? Why are you arresting us? Wang Guanan responded and shouted. The blue-haired girl also quickly took out a weapon similar to a necklace, her face full of vigilance. What happened just now, magic? I don't have time to pay attention to you now. Chen just glanced at them, and the bloody light flashed away. The next moment, the two of them fell to the ground with their dead bodies and lost consciousness. On the island, Crocus narrowed his eyes slightly. Who are you? Chen pondered for a while, and said seriously, a new pirate who was just starting out. HMPH, there must be a limit to joking. The old man snorted coldly, took out something from his arms and threw it. Then, no matter what, our deal is done. Nami quickly reached out to catch it and looked at it. This is the record pointer. It doesn't look much different from a normal compass. Crocus looked at the newspaper in his hand and reminded, record the magnetic force of this twin cape for a few hours, and it will start working. Got it, Kaido said happily, Nami, as if he had acquired some treasure. After a while, on the shore of Twin Points, a group of people jumped off the boat. I have to remind you first, Chen said, holding his hands. The Grand Line has 7 routes, and it's only here that we can choose which one to take, so our first stop choice is very important. Once the first destination has been selected, it cannot be changed subsequently, and can only be sailed all the way along this line. Until the second half, the 7 routes are united, leading to the raftel at the end. Boom. The blue-haired girl who was caught had already woken up. Hearing this, she fell to her knees directly. Please, go to Whiskey Peak, that is the town we came from. Chen glanced at her and said with interest, but I want to take another route. The blue-haired girl froze for a moment, her expression became anxious. Then please let us go, we have a reason to go back. If taken to other routes, she will not be able to go back. In that case, why not be sincere? Chen squatted down and looked directly into her eyes. The blue-haired girl's expression suddenly froze. She seemed to see 2 scarlet full moons. It was a cold, evil, and demonic force. It's like a collection of all the negative emotions in the world. In just a moment, she felt as if she had been seen through. The blue-haired girl's psychological defense seemed to be destroyed, and suddenly burst into tears and began to confide. I am actually the Princess of Alabasta, Nefertiti Vivi, 35. Going undercover in this dangerous group called Baroque Studios, codenamed Miss Wednesday. I have reasons for having to go back, and countless people are waiting for me to rescue. So, please, can you go to Whiskey Peak first? 35. After these words came out, Chen and others still didn't respond. The man in the crown on the side was dumbfounded, with 2 big words of shock written all over his face. You are actually that Princess Wei Wei. 35. Unexpectedly, Miss Wednesday, who has been his partner all the time, is actually the Queen of Alabasta. Well, there seems to be a golden light in Nami's eyes. His Royal Highness Princess Wei, if we escort you back to your country, how much can you give us? 35. Blinking his eyes slightly, even the tears stopped. Reward. Of course, Nami said as it should be. We will send you back safely. Is it a kind of employment task? I understand, hesitated slightly, and stretched out an index finger. 100 million Bailey, is it okay? 100 million. Nami's voice suddenly increased, and the golden light in his eyes could hardly be suppressed. Wei Wei is startled. No, are you not satisfied? No, very satisfied. Nami stood up directly from the seat. Okay, I've decided to take the route of Whiskey Peak. Great. Wei Wei bowed deeply. Thank you. Soon, the magnetic recording was completed, and the Golden Mary began to set off. Set off. The crowd was in high spirits. But soon. In just one day, they saw how devilish the sea area of the Grand Line really is. From the scorching sun to the storm, to the snow. The change between these, constantly evolving in just a few minutes. The clothes they wear are also constantly changing. From the beginning of the short sleeve to the current winter clothes, it can be called a fantasy. Half a month later, whoosh, a howling cold wind blew across the sea. Chen was leaning on the side of the boat with a contemplative face. He was thinking about how to use the keel. Zoro on the side was sitting cross-legged on the deck with a solemn face, with his eyes closed and two, Kaden Kyokutsu, placed on his knees. He is trying to communicate with his own knife. So far, it appears to have achieved initial results. 1321, 1322. Not far away, Sanji was doing a squat. And Usopp is continuing to improve his ammunition, he is trying to develop a more powerful formula. In the past half-month, everyone has experienced a lot. Such as the large number of Baroque studio agents in Whiskey Peak, and the battle of two giants in Little Garden on Prehistoric Island. There are dangers in between. But now their strength is stronger than in the original trajectory, naturally there will be no accidents. Come here. Wei Wei suddenly pushed open the cabin door, her expression a little flustered. Nami, she's sick. 99. After a while, everyone saw Nami lying on the bed in the lounge. His face was flushed, and his breath was extremely hot. Chen frowned and reached out and nodded on her forehead. Have a fever, or have you been hit? He knew very well what the disease was all about. This is caused by the bite of a poisonous insect that has been extinct for centuries. That kind of poisonous insect is now only found on the prehistoric island called Little Garden. Nami is exactly the trick there. You have to find a doctor as soon as possible. Chen frowned slightly. Otherwise, Nami won't last for 5 days. This poison is also known as the 5-day disease. It only takes 5 days to kill someone. For a time, the atmosphere in the lounge dropped to freezing point. Chapter 73 Bikes that break through the snow. Battle, Admiral Aokiji. 5 days. Usopp, Sanji, and the others all widened their eyes. Well, this is not a common cold and fever. 35 Chen glanced at Nami's painful expression. You must find a professional doctor to treat it. Quote. Sanji sat directly on the ground. The cigarette in his mouth was shaking. No way, Miss Nami, want. He couldn't say the word. Death. What nonsense. Zoro's eyes were also solemn. Hurry up to the next island and find the doctor on the island, otherwise it will be really hopeless. 99. Sanji reacted and hammered the floor with his teeth. Damn, I knew that when I was in Twin Points, I would have to tie the old man to the ship. One Piece's ship doctor can definitely cure this disease. On their ships, there are still some vacancies that are left unfilled. Such as ship doctor, boatman, helmsman and so on. Other tasks are usually solved by Sanji, Usopp and others. Only the ship doctor can't. The profession of a doctor requires a lot of medical knowledge, as well as practice cases, in order to do well. It's not a profession that a layman can handle by feel. Not to mention, they don't even have any medicines for treatment. Drive forward and speed up, Chen frowned. Understood. Sanji ran into the control room with Zoro. After half a day. See the island. Usopp's excited voice came from the deck. Everyone walked out of the cabin one after another and looked forward. A pure white island came into their sight. To be precise, the entire island was covered with snow and ice. The island is large and wide, and some buildings of the inhabitants can be seen on it. This shows that there are many people living on this island. At the same time, it means that there will be a doctor on it. Great, Miss Nami is saved. Sanji's eyes filled with excitement. The others also breathed a sigh of relief. Suddenly, Usopp raised the binoculars and said suspiciously, Huh, what is that? In view, a figure, riding a bicycle on the sea. Wait, on the sea, riding a bicycle. Usopp's eyes widened in disbelief, thinking he was hallucinating. But when he rubbed his eyes and continued to look, he found that the figure did exist. Not only that, the man even came in their direction on a bicycle. What's the situation? Sanji let out a breath of smoke and looked into the distance in confusion. Zoro frowned slightly, as if sensing something. We may be in trouble. In the cold wind and snow, a bicycle broke through the blockade of the wind and snow and appeared in everyone's sight. This scene is undoubtedly shocking. In the Devil's Sea like the Grand Line. How can someone walk directly in the ocean without a boat? Highlight the boldness of an art master. It was a tall man with short curly black hair and a green eye patch on his head. He had the usual lazy expression on his face. But that's not the point. Crucially, the marine, justice, cape draped over him. At this time, everyone saw clearly that there was a layer of floating ice spreading on the sea where he rode his bicycle. It was these ice floes that propped up his path. Well, it's actually this guy. On the deck, Chen rubbed his temples with a headache. His memory of the characters in this world. It mainly focuses on the protagonist group and some characters standing at the top of the pyramid. This is normal. In an anime, even if the strong ones don't appear many times, they will always leave a deep impression on people. Such as Gold Glitter in Fate, such as Gai Huang, Uchiha Madara in Hokage, etc. And this guy in front of him is undoubtedly one of the monsters in this world. Admiral of Headquarters, Kuzan, codename, Aokiji. It's Marine. 39 Usopp exclaimed, how can you meet Marine in a place like this? 35. Zoro also subconsciously put his hand on the handle of the knife, his eyes solemn. I can only fight. Sanji clenched the cigarette in his mouth. Miss Nami is still waiting for the doctor to save her life. Lu Chen sighed. Bring Nami to the island first, I'll solve it. Zoro glanced at him. Need any help? No need. Lu Chen shook his head. The first thing you have to do is to find a doctor, you can't delay it any longer. There was one more thing he didn't say. This is Admiral. One of the powerhouses standing at the top of the pyramid of the full sea. The absolute force that Marine relies on to suppress countless pirates. At this level of battle, Zoro and the others can't help right now. The space distorted, forming Uzumaki, sucking Lu Chen's figure into it and disappearing. Sanji gritted his teeth. Listen to him. With that guy's strength, nothing can go wrong. 35. That's all. Usopp ran toward the cabin's control room, steering the boat quickly toward the island. For a time, the Golden Mary broke through the sea and passed through the wind and snow. On the other side of the sea, Aokiji stopped pedaling the bicycle and looked up at the black-clothed figure that suddenly appeared in the air in front of him. It's you. He scratched his hair. I remember it was, Lu Chen. Before he left, he had read the wanted notice. It's just that the name is a bit strange and not easy to remember. Admiral Aokiji. Lu Chen stepped in midair, looking down. You're not staying in Marineford, what are you doing here? Aokiji yawned lazily. I don't want to come, but I have to let someone come to find out about you. After all, suddenly appeared a strong man who had never had any reputation in the sea. This strong man is still a pirate. No way Marine didn't pay attention. As the target me, Lu Chen understood. The current Straw Hat group is indeed not enough to alarm naval headquarters. In other words, we still have to play a game. Lu Chen looked at Aokiji. In the eyes, a deep blood color floated up, like a bright moon rising from the sea. Are you sure you want to fight me here? Aokiji chuckled and looked around. Here is the sea, there is an inexhaustible supply of water. Coupled with the weather here, the snow is flying, and the cold wind is howling. For his frozen fruit, it's a perfect fighting place. You have to fight to find out, Lu Chen said calmly. Of course, he knew that the environment had a boosting effect on Logia-capable users. That's why Crocodile, the sand crocodile, makes a lot of desert in Alabasta. In the desert, his sand fruit ability can play a 120% effect. But this kind of increase effect, for the more powerful people, the effect is weaker. In other words, the stronger the Logia ability, the lower the dependence on the environment. People like Aokiji, even in places where there is no water. It can also rely on its own ability to artificially create a piece of ice. The later island of Punk Hazard is the best proof. Then I'm welcome. The laziness on Aokiji's face disappeared, and he raised his hand suddenly. 2 thorns. 39. For a time, the ice and snow in the air quickly condensed. 2 sharp frost spears suddenly passed through the air, causing a snowstorm. Aokiji frowned slightly. Backquote, what a strange ability. Quote. He could feel that the 2 thorn spears actually passed through the man's body. But no harm was done. The elementalization of Logia, or some special ability. Without thinking too much, Aokiji's eyes narrowed suddenly. Children's mouth. It sounded like a sharp bird chirping. An ice bird spread its wings and flew, and wherever it passed, it brought a track of ice and snow. The turbulent cold air swept all around, as if to freeze everything. At the same time, it also obscures the line of sight. The sound of breaking through the air suddenly resounded. The figure in black staggered past the huge ice bird, and the two didn't seem to have the slightest collision. What? Aokiji's pupils narrowed. A cold light crossed the occlusion of the ice and snow and slashed head-on. Click. Aokiji was directly cut into 2 pieces. However, when the 2 bodies landed, they turned into ice cubes and gradually closed together. It's not elementalization, Aokiji confirmed, frowning, a very troublesome ability. If Logia is elementalized, it is impossible to ignore his coldness. As the top Logia powerhouse, Aokiji knows how to deal with Logia. But this person in front of him seems to not exist directly. It's like a reflection in the water, you can't see it or touch it. Each other, Lu Chen held the short sword with a helpless expression. The strongest in this world, the biggest characteristic is very strong vitality. Every monster level Nuo Jiaohao powerhouse is almost indestructible. The indestructible armament haki, the elementalized Logia ability, the exaggerated physique, the observation haki that can sense danger, and more. It might be possible to beat them. But if you want to kill it, it's as hard as going to the sky. Whether it is the 3 Admiral of Marine, or Kaido of the 4 Emperors, etc., are the best among them. Aokiji lazily raised the blindfold on his forehead. All in all, there is indeed something wrong with your bounty, which I have confirmed. 35. He slowly squatted down and put his hands on the ground. Although I really want to go back to sleep, but a character like you can't be left alone since you meet him. A terrible aura rose from him. Ice Age. Kakakakaka. A large amount of ice began to spread. The entire sea area seemed to have turned into a polar ice sheet. Everything is submerged in this white swell. With his own power, he created a frozen kingdom on this sea. Far away, everyone on Going Merry looked back abruptly. What happened? Zoro's expression changed suddenly. I seem to know who that is. 99. Chapter 74 Lu Chen Aokiji Battle, Blackbeard lays a gun. Marine Admiral, Aokiji. When the name was uttered by Zoro, the whole deck fell into silence. All pirates know what kind of existence that is. For the Marines, Admiral is their inspiration. But for the pirates, an existence like Admiral is a reminder. As long as it happens, it basically means death. Sanji took a deep breath. Anyway, our task now is to save Nami first. Zoro turned his head to look at the island, nodded and said, yes, I will find a way to help Nami after finding the doctor. Although he also knew that he might not be able to help. The ice-covered country that covered the entire sea area had already revealed the strength of that admiral to the fullest. Terrifying power like a natural disaster. On the sea. Boom. A piece of solid ice suddenly exploded. Aokiji's body was covered with frost, and the whole body exuded endless cold air. The high-intensity attack has been maintained, but to no avail. Even he felt a headache right now. The opposite Lu Chen felt very similar to him. In the face of a top Logia-capable person, he has no armed color, and is basically unlikely to cause any substantial damage. Just as the two sides are at a standoff. Whoa, the sound of violent water flow came, and the two turned to look together. It was an ice surface that had been broken open by the battle. In the sea below, a huge shadow gradually floated up, and finally broke the sea and floated above the ice surface. This is a large diving sailboat, the whole body is made of steel. There is also a pirate flag on it. Moo ha 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 ha. A burst of laughter came from the sailboat. 973. A man who was as fat as a ball, with a huge mouth and a cylindrical tin plate attached to his chin. Little ones, were back in the Drum Kingdom. On the sailboat, there were at least hundreds of soldiers, all of whom were obviously his subordinates. Huh. The big-mouthed man glanced at the surrounding ice and the two figures standing on the ice. Hey, who are you two? Aokiji was expressionless, and folded his hands on his chest. Is it another pirate? Lu Chen touched his chin, but he was somewhat impressed by this person. Mainly because the fruit ability of this person is very interesting. If I remember correctly, it should be the former king of the Drum Kingdom, the Munch Munch fruit person. Hey, didn't you hear my question? The big-mouthed man raised his eyebrows. I am King Wapple of the Drum Kingdom, do you want to disobey me? Seeing that the two still didn't answer, he turned his head to his subordinates and said, add a law to me, and anyone who dares to ignore the king will be sentenced to death. The subordinates on the side quickly took out the writing record. This absurd and cruel king has no idea how many vexatious laws he has set. The surrounding soldiers have long been surprised. HMPH, Wapple snorted coldly and shouted again. You two, if you don't answer my question, I will sentence you to death. PFF'd. Lu Chen couldn't hold back, but still laughed out loud. A former king of a world government affiliation to sentence a marine admiral to death. This scene is simply ridiculous. Aokiji stood there with a weird expression, but he was not angry, on the contrary, he even wanted to laugh. It's like humans don't get irritated by the threat of an ant. When the gap between the two sides reaches a certain point. ACBC, your anger will only be cute and funny in the eyes of the other party. Damn, Wapple was furious. How dare you ignore me? You, all of you, get those two people. 35. Yes, soldiers responded one by one, preparing to rush down from the sailboat. Attack Marine Admiral. 35 Aokiji's voice was lazy. I have the right to kill you on the spot. He looked at the large sailboat, took a deep breath, and then let out a sharp breath of cold air. Freezing time. The cold air suddenly turned into a frigid wind, blowing towards the large sailboat. In just a few breaths, the entire large ship, along with the hundreds of people on board, were all sealed inside by frost. Not even a chance to escape. This is Admiral. Don't look at him and Lu Chen's stalemate for a long time, no one can do anything about it. But in the face of these minions, a casual blow will destroy the world. By the way, Aokiji, Lu Chen said suddenly, I have a message that I can tell you for free, you should be interested. Oh, Aokiji turned his head, he was already planning to call it quits and go back to the headquarters. There's no point in spending time with Lu Chen here. No one can do anything between the two, it's just a waste of time, it's better to go back to sleep. The Wapple you just blocked was the last king of the Drum Kingdom. Aokiji pouted. If it's just this news, I don't think I'm interested. Lu Chen smiled slightly. Do you know why he was the last? Because the Drum Kingdom was destroyed, and the person who destroyed it was called Marshal D. Teach, nicknamed Blackbeard. 5. Huh, Aokiji's pupils shrank slightly. Blackbeard. For other pirates, he may have little interest in memorizing. But the 4 emperors are different. All the main members of the 4 emperors pirate group, he is impressed. Blackbeard, a member of the 2nd division of the 4 emperors, Whitebeard pirates. And, no matter how he looked down on it, the Drum Kingdom is also one of the affiliated countries of world government. They have a duty to protect. Now that Blackbeard has destroyed the Drum Kingdom, it is undoubtedly playing the face of the world government. Aokiji said solemnly. We have information showing that this person has defected from the Whitebeard pirates, and before he defected, he killed Sachi, the captain of the 2nd division of the Whitebeard pirates. Don't underestimate Marine's intelligence system. Especially when it comes to the 4 emperors, they have countless eyeliners watching. I didn't expect that guy to escape to paradise, Aokiji frowned slightly. But if it's just this news, it doesn't make much sense to him. At most, after returning to the headquarters, send some marines to encircle Blackbeard. That's not the point. Chen waved his hand, and the expression on his face became meaningful. Next, I'll tell you a top secret intel about Blackbeard. Believe me, this information is currently known only to me in the entire world except Blackbeard. Aokiji raised his head suddenly, his eyes narrowed slightly. Tell me about it. The reason Blackbeard defected was that he found a fruit. Chen walked slowly on the ice with his hands behind his back. That fruit is called Logia dark fruit. For this fruit, Blackbeard has been lurking and disguised in the Whitebeard pirates for more than 20 years. Until this fruit appeared, he violently killed his captain Sachi and defected directly. Aokiji's frown deepened. Logia dark fruit. He had heard of this fruit, and it was recorded in the Devil Fruit illustrated book. Even so, Aokiji looked up at the other party. What does it mean? A pirate who is very ambitious and good at forbearance. I remind you, Chen said calmly. The scar on the red-haired face of one of the 4 emperors was left by Blackbeard. You mean, yes, this guy is very good at hiding. Until he achieves his goal, he has been acting harmless to humans and animals, and when he succeeds, he will show his ferocious fangs. Chen continued. And now such a pirate has obtained dark fruit, don't you wonder what he wants to do next? One is truly vicious, has no bottom line, and has great strength. In order to achieve the goal, he has not hesitated to endure for more than 20 years, and he is a pirate who does not compromise his means. Even now get the legendary Logia dark fruit. The development after Blackbeard will surely surprise the attention of countless people. If Luffy, who was just a fledgling with a bounty of only 30 million, Marine would think about killing the evil. Well, for Marine, I'm afraid he just wants to get rid of it quickly, and he can't sleep until he kills it. Aokiji seemed to want to understand something. You want us Marine to deal with Blackbeard, why, you have a grudge. No hatred, Chen said sincerely, but I hate him. In other words, it's just a pure natural opposition. If Luffy is the savior, then Blackbeard Teach must be the destroyer. Since he chose to stand on Luffy's side, well and Blackbeard are natural enemies. Aokiji stood silent for a while, and then said, when I go back, I will verify the information you said. Chen smiled. Of course, what if the verification is true? 1 foot. Aokiji's expression didn't change. Even if it's true, it's our business. After he finished speaking, he turned and walked towards his bicycle. During the previous battle, he had been using his ability to seal the bike, so it was not damaged. Getting on the bike, before leaving, Aokiji looked back at Chen. Even if what you said is true, it will not change your own threat. I will report it when I go back and increase your bounty. The implication is to increase Marine's attention to Chen. Chen waved his hand indifferently, as you wish. After Aokiji's back disappeared from sight, Chen turned his head and glanced at the huge sailboat on the ice not far away. The next moment, the space wrinkled, and his figure disappeared from the place. At the same time, a deserted island in the first half of the Grand Line. 5 figures are sitting on the ground, around a bonfire with food roasted on it. Ah, Blackbeard Teach, who was sitting on the ground, sneezed suddenly, feeling a little chill on his back. He blinked a little dazedly, turned his head and looked around. Lafayette, wearing a top hat, asked, what's wrong? Teach looked wary. Nothing. I always felt like someone was watching me just now. 35. Immediately he shook his head, stopped thinking about it, and laughed. Thief ha 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 ha, keep drinking. Keep drinking. 39. Chapter 75 Emergency Food Chopper. Power Choice, Blue Slime. Shore of Drum Island. Going Merry is stopping here quietly. Pat. Chen appeared out of thin air, landed on the deck, glanced around, and raised his eyebrows in surprise. No one. He remembered that he had discussed it before. When we landed on the island, Zoro and Wei Wei's stalking duck stayed on the boat. As a result, no one is here now, and it seems that they have all gone to the island. It is a basic operation for the pirate ship to dock and keep people to guard the ship. Otherwise, if there are other pirates or even marines landing in the future, your ship will be gone. My heart is really big, Chen smiled and shook his head, leaning on the ship's side and closing his eyes to rest. After fighting with Aokiji for a long time, although he was not injured, the consumption of Kamui has been maintained, not small. Here I have to sigh again, the powerhouses in this world are really monsters in physical strength. After half a sound, suddenly, pink snow fell in the sky. Like the petals of a sakura flower, it dances down from the sky. Chen opened his eyes and looked at the highest mountain in Drum Island. There, the summit of the entire mountain was dyed a pink. Under the moonlight, it looks like a huge sakura flower tree in full bloom. Chen looked straight at it, with a little emotion in his eyes. It's really beautiful. He knew that it was a lifelong pursuit of a doctor called a quack doctor. That doctor wants to make the Drum Island, a land of ice and snow, full of sakura flowers. Now it seems that he did it in a special way. After a while, Luffy and the others returned to the boat. Ah, Chen, have you come back? Usopp scratched his head. We're still thinking about getting ready to help you. 5. Although when they were at the summit before, they almost forgot about it. That's Admiral, Zoro said solemnly. You're not hurt, are you? Among the people present, it is estimated that no one knows the horror of Admiral better than him. It's okay. Lu Chen waved his hands calmly. That guy just came over to say hello. Oh right, Lu Chen, Nami said with a smile, holding a puppet-like little reindeer in his hand. Here's our new buddy, a brilliant little guy named Tony Chopper. Gao Ming. The little reindeer covered his face with happiness. Hee hee, idiot, even if you praise me, I won't be happy, idiot. It can be regarded as a typical example of disrespect. Hello, 39 Lu Chen didn't care either, and introduced himself. My name is Lu Chen, and I'm the trainer on the ship. Quote. Huh, trainer. Chopper was stunned. In an instant, it thought of the animal trainers in those circuses. Do you want to be one of the tamed ones too? You seem to have misunderstood something. Lu Chen smiled kindly. As a trainer, I am only responsible for helping you become stronger. Oh, that's it. Chopper nodded blankly, although it may not be quite clear what exactly this position is. Nami smiled and announced, Chopper will be our ship doctor from now on. Ship doctor. Usopp scratched his head. Just such a civet cat. I'm a reindeer. 35 Chopper protested angrily. Nami said seriously, don't you know? Chopper is a super-class doctor who has inherited all of Dr. Kurha's medical skills. 35. What, Chopper, so you're a doctor? Can't believe it. Woo, Nami sighed. I really can't stand you guys, so why did you invite Chopper on board? Luffy whimpered. Woo, Zoro translates. He said, because Chopper can transform in 7 stages, he's cool, he can talk, and he's a funny reindeer. Sanji said as it should be. Of course it is emergency food. Chopper turned pale. Okay, in order to celebrate the new mates on board, have a party tonight, you won't go home if you don't get drunk. Nami announced loudly. For a time, everyone responded loudly and ran to the cabin to get wine and food. Pink snow floats in the air like a sakura flower. Chopper stood there blankly, turned his head to look in the direction of Drum Island, and murmured, Dr. Gerva, I finally, also took this step. Snapped. A hand rested on its head. Lu Chen stood by its side at some point. Chopper, be happy, you can sail out to sea, they will be happy for you. Lu Chen. Chopper was stunned for a moment, then nodded fiercely, yeah. I know. Next, everyone reveled on the deck all night, until finally they all fell drunk and lay on the ground. Fortunately, after leaving the sea area before, the weather is no longer cold. Otherwise, I am afraid that there will be a few sick. The next day, the sun is shining and the sun is shining. Hey, the weather is still comfortable like this. Nami stood on the deck, basking in the sun with a face full of enjoyment. On the side of the ship not far away, Lu Chen's voice rang out, is your meditation finished? Nami's current training plan is already a new one. After all, the previous plan only called for 7 days of meditation. She has already completed it long ago, and also obtained the low-level ability of LV.1. Unfortunately, this level of ability has almost no effect. As for the new training program, it's as follows. Training object. Nami. Close black lens bracket. Training goal. To obtain the electric shocker ability LV.2 and the corresponding computing power. Close black lens bracket. Training plan. Enter a state of meditation in which the brain is completely empty for 2 hours and lasts for 14 days. Close black lens bracket. Speaking of this, Nami's face collapsed. Damn it, I've been holding on for a week. It was interrupted by an illness, and now I have to start again. 99. Lu Chen twitched the corners of his mouth. Who told you to wander around Little Garden Island with your stomach exposed? Nami choked, turned her head and said nothing. Humph. As we all know, Nami's summer clothes like to wear cropped short sleeves. This time it was a big loss. Who would have thought that a bite from a small bug could cause such serious consequences? Yawning, the others also got up from the deck and stretched. Wow. At this moment, a giant eagle swept across the horizon and swooped down sharply. A pair of sharp eagle claws flashed coldly. Dangerous, dangerous, Chopper yelled as he stepped back quickly. It's okay. Sanji lit a cigarette, not caring at all. Everyone on the deck was doing their own business, and no one cared about the giant eagle. Haha, 35 Chopper looked at the crowd with a bewildered expression. Woo, on the sheep's head on the bow, Luffy whimpered, his hands suddenly stretched out and then pulled back sharply. Bam, the giant eagle's head was hit hard, and the whole fell directly on the deck. 0. Ask for flowers. Look, I said it's fine, Sanji breathed out a puff of smoke with a calm expression on his face. Gollum, Chopper swallowed. You guys are all amazing. Sanji glanced down at it and suddenly thought of something. Yeah, Chopper doesn't have a training plan yet. 5. Lu Chen also raised his eyes and looked over. Indeed, the current Chopper is indeed quite weak. Although medical skills are superb, in terms of combat effectiveness. You must know that the fruit it eats is Zone, Phantom Beast, and Renren fruit. The fruits in this category are quite buggy. Luffy's Nika form, Marine Marshal Sengoku's Big Buddha form, etc. No wonder someone in a previous life ridiculed, saying that Chopper eats the fruit of everyone in the form of the common people. After all, compared to several other Renren fruits, it is really too weak. Training plan. Chopper blinked. What's that? 99. Lu Chen said. In short, through my training, you can acquire the specified skills and become stronger. That's it, Chopper said, that's why you're called a trainer. That's right. For a time, Chopper's eyes became firm. Come on. I will train hard to become stronger. No hurry, Lu Chen got up from the side of the boat. Old rule, choose strength first. He stretched out 4 fingers. I will pick out 4 templates for you to watch, and after reading, you have to choose one of them as your training target. Huh, Chopper scratched his head in confusion, not understanding at all. It's okay, you'll understand after reading it. In Lu Chen's eyes, a dazzling scarlet suddenly rose up. Chopper looked directly into those eyes, his brain went straight into a shutdown. Even when the sun shines, it feels cold all over. It was as if he had fallen into a bottomless abyss in an instant. Nami hurriedly shouted, "Bring us with you too." Luffy quickly echoed, "Woo." The flames of fighting intent in Zoro's eyes ignited. Have you finally seen the powerhouses of the otherworld again? Next moment, kakaka. It was as if a mirror had shattered. The whole world is cracked and plunged into nothingness. Everyone's eyes are black. The next moment, when they opened their eyes again, they were already in the audience seat of a large arena. Where is this place? Chopper looked blank. On the side, Wei Wei's eyes are also full of shock. What's going on with us? Don't panic, 33 Lu Chen gently said. This is a fantasy world constructed by me, not the real world. Chopper jumped on his seat, and touched it. Isn't this really realistic? It's so real, everything feels the same as in reality. Lu Chen reminded. Chopper, pay attention. Next, I will call up 4 templates for you to watch. After reading, you have to tell me your choice. Although he didn't understand what it meant, Chopper nodded subconsciously. I see. Snapped. Fingers snapped loudly. In the huge arena in front, a small spherical figure suddenly appeared. That's a blue slime. Chapter 76. Genderless beautiful girl. It was a blue slime ball less than a meter in diameter. At this time, it was quietly parked in the arena, like a toy. In the audience, Zoro's eyes were burning with the flame of war, and he was looking forward to the strong man who appeared. However, when he saw the blue slime ball clearly, his expression still didn't hold back. Although I know that people can't be judged by their appearance. Zoro's mouth twitched slightly, but it doesn't seem to be even a person. There have been several situations where the strength does not match the appearance in the eyes. Therefore, he has long developed the awareness of not judging people by their appearance. But this one in front of me really makes people feel a little weird. The corners of Lu Chen's mouth evoked a smile. Yes, the 4 templates I chose this time are not human beings themselves. Limit the strong to the category of human beings. Also too narrow. There are so many worlds, there are countless different types of powerhouses. Even in many worlds, humans themselves do not belong to a strong race. Usopp shrugged. It doesn't really matter what you look like. Sanji lit a cigarette with a calm face. It's not a beautiful lady, I'm not interested. 35. Chopper also glanced at his small arms and legs, and said confidently, I think it may not be able to beat me. 973. Lu Chen twitched the corner of his mouth. You are quite confident. This seemingly harmless little guy, his combat effectiveness is definitely beyond the table. On the contrary, Nami and Wei Wei's focus is different. The two of them looked at the arena with the same expressions at this time, as if there were stars in their eyes. So cute. This blue slime ball looks really cute on the outside. Lu Chen secretly sighed. Not surprising, after all, this is the famous, cute king. Speaking of which, Chopper is also nicknamed the pirate's first cutest pet. It's a good match between the two. Thinking, he straightened his expression. It's called Limuru Tempest. He is the leader of the Demon Federation, the Awakened Demon King, and the 8-star Demon King, of the Holy Demon King, also known as the True Demon King. Why? A series of obscure names came out of Lu Chen's mouth. The eyes of everyone looking at the blue slime have gradually changed. Although I haven't seen this little guy take action yet. But just hearing these names has already begun to give people a feeling of standing up from the bottom of their hearts. Lu Chen deliberately paused, and after they recovered, he continued. It has 3 unique skills: Great Sage, Degenerate Predator. Of course, its ability was transformed later, and it has become the King of Wisdom, and the King of Gluttony, and finally, it even unified an ultimate ability, God of the Void. 99. Golem. For a time, there was a series of swallowing sounds from the audience. These high-level skill names sounded very strong. In other words, this seemingly harmless blue slime ball hides an extremely terrifying power in its body. Then let's begin. Lu Chen nodded with satisfaction, then snapped his fingers. Snapped. Fingers snapped loudly. The scene that had been suspended in the entire arena suddenly came to life. An eerie hiss resounded through the arena. A giant snake, which can be called a behemoth, came out of nowhere. The purple skin was as thick as a rock formation, and a circle of dark stripes added a bit of gloom. That's right, this giant snake was built by Lu Chen based on the 10,000 snakes in the Hokage world. Of course, it is not the 10,000 snakes of the first generation, but the 10,000 snakes of the second generation who were later resurrected by Kabuto. On its body, it also grows a pair of scales that resemble small wings. Whether it is size, strength or perception ability, it far exceeds the first generation's purpose of the snake. Hiss. The giant snake squatted on the spot, with a pair of vertical pupils staring at the small blue sphere on the opposite side. Unlike the previous Manos Grande, Warcraft, etc., the giant snake does not act directly. The snake is suspicious, and it seems to feel some kind of threat from this slime. Limuru also woke up and looked at the giant snake in front of him curiously, a new breed of Warcraft. It jumped in place, as if it felt that its round body was not easy to move. Then, a burst of blue light lit up from its body. Next moment, the blue slime ball disappeared. Instead, it was a beautiful girl with long silver blue hair and golden pupils. All in all, it looks like a beautiful girl, but really speaking, it should be genderless. After all, slimes themselves are genderless beings. In the audience, Usopp looked dumbfounded, his eyes almost popping out. Can you still become a human? Sanji stared at it with a tangled face, and murmured in a low voice, is it a beautiful girl or a beautiful boy? I'm so envious. Chopper looked at this scene with longing. It can only transform into a human-shaped reindeer. Strictly speaking, it is not a human, and should be classified as a fur tribe. And this slime has undoubtedly become a real humanoid. Hiss. At this moment, the giant snake in the arena finally moved. When Lemuru just finished his transformation, he was still looking at his clothes. The huge snake head suddenly ejected, like an experienced boxer throwing a punch. Fast to ultimate. The nature of snakes is that if they don't move, they will kill people. Full of fierce nature, Nami and Wei Wei in the audience even subconsciously shouted, "Danger!" Call. A green wind blew up, forming a wind barrier around Lemuru. Open black lens bracket crest of the storm close black lens bracket. Bang 1. The giant snake hit the barrier, as if it hit a city wall. Abruptly knocking himself into a daze, the snake's head shook violently in midair. The huge force even created layers of air waves in midair. But it did not shake the barrier formed by the wind. Huh. Nami and Wei Wei both breathed a sigh of relief. It scared me to death. 35. Chen looked strange. Actually, even if Lemuru doesn't defend, it won't be a problem. Huh. Several people around looked over. Chen shook his head and explained. This guy has a very terrifying passive, physical attack invalid, natural effect invalid, status abnormal invalid, mental attack resistance, and so on. Chopper's expression froze. Yuan, so it's so powerful. Zoro found a blind spot. With such a powerful existence, it is difficult to train. That's right, the stronger the existence, the more difficult the training will be. Like Lemuru, the difficulty is probably disappointing. Chen smiled. It doesn't matter, Lemuru has a lot of skills, if you want to train, it must be one by one. It's like splitting a 1,000-story skyscraper into layers to build. If you want to eat one bite and become fat, of course you can't zero. In the field, Lemuru finally started to fight back. She stretched out her hand to the giant snake and tilted her head, her golden pupils were full of peace. Since you are going to attack me, I have to fight back, I hope you don't die. Boom. Open black lens bracket coercion close black lens bracket. In midair, it was like a huge shadow was cast, shrouding the giant snake in it, making it difficult to move. Then, a black flame suddenly burned from the giant snake. The terrifying high temperature even distorted the air. Open black lens bracket black flame close black lens bracket. Hush hush. The giant snake neighed, its huge body twisting constantly, trying to put out the flames. However, these black flames are like maggots on the tarsus, which are difficult to extinguish and cannot be thrown off. Hiss. The giant snake was completely crazy, and its huge body suddenly circled. The snake head pointed in the direction of Lemuru, and opened its mouth suddenly, revealing the fangs inside. I saw its throat bulging slightly, and then suddenly exhaled a large cloud of dark smoke. Poisonous fog. And it's poisonous. A little bit of it can be fatal. The dark poisonous fog that filled the sky even blocked the sight. Lemuru stood there and did not move, a pair of golden pupils lingering slightly, as if even the poisonous mist could not block its brilliance. She opened her mouth slightly and inhaled gently towards the front. Open black lens bracket king of gluttony close black lens bracket. It's like soot meets an extractor. A large amount of poisonous mist was sucked away by Limlu, and even formed a cyclone in front of her. In the blink of an eye, all the poisonous fog was dissipated. But Lemuru didn't react, just smacked his mouth. Well, this taste, it's not very delicious. This look is like the poisonous mist she swallowed just now. But a piece of ordinary food. Hiss. With the fierce black flame on his body, the giant snake forcibly broke free from the shackles of coercion with its fierce instinct. The huge body quickly crawled across the ground. A flurry of rubble and smoke rises like a runaway train. The huge snake head slammed down towards where Lemuru was. Boom. Wan 1.2 landed like a comet. The smoke and dust rose from the sky, and on the ground, crisscrossed cracks spread like spider webs in all directions to the west. This blow condensed the strength and weight of the giant snake's body, as well as the speed accumulated during the charge. The power is terrifying. Everyone in the audience couldn't help holding their breath. Under this terrifying impact, if the people present went up, they might be dead. Suddenly, Lemuru's gentle voice sounded above the smoke. It's really sad. I can feel that your soul is full of violent killing desires, and you can no longer be regarded as a normal creature. Obviously, the snake's blow didn't really hit her. Chen also explained casually. Space domination, you can freely manipulate space and coordinates. The ability of the Oath King, combined with Infinite Prison, has skills such as imaginary space, magic power manipulation, heat manipulation, inertial control, absolute defense, and space domination. Each skill name is spoken. It made everyone in the audience shocked by one more point. Hearing the end, they even felt numb. What kind of slime is this? This is clearly a terrifying existence that can be called a demon. Chapter 77 Absolute Power. The reincarnation of life, Xerneas. Lemuru turned pest. This name will surely be remembered by everyone today. Too strong. The series of titles and skills made everyone lose their minds. Just imagining those terrifying skills can make a person feel in awe. Of course, the monster-like interior does not affect the cuteness of her appearance. Whether it is the blue spherical slime form, or the sky blue long hair golden pupil beautiful girl form. Both Nami and Wei Wei's faces moved, and they seemed to want to raise such a dog. Hiss. In the arena, the giant snake shook its head on the spot after rushing into the air. Tiny cracks spread out on the huge snake head. Obviously, this blow is not easy for itself. As for what Lemuru said in the sky, it didn't listen to it at all. Or, as Lemuru said, the only will in its sanity is to kill, and it does not understand itself. Strictly speaking, the giant snake is just a combat weapon constructed by Chen, not a creature. The giant snake spit out a letter, and a pair of cold vertical pupils locked the blue figure in the sky again. It is accumulating strength to strike again. Sad existence, Lemuru shook his head, not feeling angry. I'll come to relieve you. Saying that, she stretched out a hand and pressed it in the air. An ancient unknown word was slowly chanted from her mouth. Om. A blue magic circle spread out in front of Rimuru's outstretched right hand. On the magic circle, the blue light changed from faint to gradually bright, even dazzling. Everyone can clearly perceive how terrifying elemental power is gathered in it. Dragon Seed Magic, Chen suddenly said while looking straight at the sky above the arena in the audience. This is her trump card form 02, the highest holy demon, the dragon demon sticky star god body. In midair, Lemuru looked down calmly. Oblivion. Boom. 35. The vast magic elements poured out from the magic circle and turned into a beam of light falling from the sky. The entire arena was illuminated, as if a sun had fallen. At first there seemed to be no sound. After 0.1 seconds, the deafening sound resounded as if overwhelming. Circles of air waves pushed outward frantically, rolling up countless dust on the ground. The ground kept sinking, and there was no rubble splashing because it was all melted directly. Hiss. The giant snake was shrouded in the beam of light, and there was no room for struggle. The huge body suddenly solidified, and gradually turned into fly ash and dissipated. Finally, when the beam of light dissipated, only the pit in the arena with a diameter of hundreds of meters could be seen. For a while, the audience fell into silence. Usopp's mouth opened wide, as if he couldn't close it. Zoro also took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. This kind of power, there is no chance. In the face of absolute power, all the bells and whistles seem to have lost their meaning. As long as it is within the shrouded range of the beam of light, any creature may not escape the ending of perdition. Chopper looked at the scene with a dull expression. Is this the power I'm going to choose? Isn't the difference a little too big? On the other hand, Nami, with stars in his eyes, it's cute and powerful. Snapped. With the snap of his fingers, the picture in the arena suddenly fell into a stagnation. Chen turned to look at Chopper. How does it feel? Chopper touched his head, hesitantly said, although I envy her being able to transform into a human form, it seems that she is too far from me. Chen nodded slightly, but he did. That blue slime has countless skills. Even if the training of one skill, if you want to complete it, you don't know that you will get the year of the monkey and the month of the horse. Not to mention, some of these skills are so powerful that the difficulty cannot be low at all. Just being a great sage, I don't know how much energy it takes. Then let's look at the back first. Chen looked towards the arena and snapped his fingers again. Snapped. In an instant, the screen in the entire arena was reset. In the center of the arena, a tree was standing there quietly. Wait, tree, Usopp's voice rose suddenly, incredulous. The powerhouses that appeared in the past, no matter how weird they are still creatures. What happened to this tree in front of you? It's impossible. Let Chopper learn to become a tree that can't move, right? Then what kind of pirates? Nami also paused, and then tentatively said, how about we just look at the next one? She simply thought that Chen had put it wrong. After all, no one should want to become a tree, no matter how strong it is. The same power, why not choose the previous blue slime? At least in appearance, Lemuru is much cuter than such a tree. This is evident from the look of resistance on Chopper's face. Well, Chen smiled. Then let me change it to another form. Saying that, he waved his hand in the direction of the arena. It's like wiping off a chalk drawing on a blackboard with a wiper. A time. The tree in the arena disappeared, replaced by a deer-shaped creature. Chen said. This is its true form. More. It was a deer-shaped creature covered in blue and black. Counting the antlers, it is 3 meters tall, with a proud and straight posture. From the head there are 8 horns protruding like branches, and each horn has 2 branches at the end. Each deer kakuzu shines in a variety of colors, from the light at the bottom to the dullness at the end. All in all, anyone who sees its existence will be sincerely amazed. So beautiful, stars appeared in Nami's eyes again, so this is the real it. That tree, perhaps just its disguise. Chopper's eyes widened, it's actually a deer. You know, it is a reindeer itself. For a time, a sense of intimacy rose in Chopper's heart. It's called Xerneas, Chen introduced on the side. It comes from the world of elves and is one of the legendary elves. As for the tree before, he glanced at everyone with a funny look, it is indeed a form of it. When reaching the end of his life, Xerneas will release his life force to all the creatures around him, and then incarnate into a tree and fall into a 1,000-year slumber. 35. After that, it will reappear in the world again. In short, it's a cycle of life and death. In a sense, Xerneas is immortal. Every death is just a new cycle. This legendary Pokemon can be regarded as the incarnation of the deep forest and the earth, and it is also a child of nature. Then, let's begin. Chen snapped his fingers. Pop 135. For a time, the time that was suspended in the arena began to elapse again. Hiss. The huge purple snake descended out of thin air and hovered on the ground with extremely agile speed. The cold vertical pupil stared at the deer in the distance, as if looking at his prey. Jarius's deer hoof gently stepped on the ground and faced the giant snake. In its pair of gem-like pupils, there is a mark similar to X. As if feeling the maliciousness of the giant snake, Xerneas began to slowly back away. It doesn't want to fight. Xerneas has a very peaceful personality, and it is difficult to have a fighting mind against other creatures. However, it does not want to fight, but it does not mean that the giant snake will be willing to let it go. Saw. The sound of breaking through the air resounded. The huge body of the giant snake suddenly passed through the layers of air waves and rushed towards Xerneas. The huge snake mouth opened at an exaggerated angle and bit down fiercely. Tear off. Although Xerneas tried his best to dodge, a piece of flesh was still torn from its body. Tick tick tick. Blood slowly dripped onto the ground. Time seemed to stand still at this moment, and everyone in the audience was a little dazed. Usopp couldn't help asking, why didn't it fight back? Among the many powerful beings summoned by Chen, this was the first one who was truly injured. It is also because of this that everyone is a little shocked. Because the impressions their predecessors brought to them are powerful, invincible, and terrifying combat power like a destructive force. But the deer, not willing to fight, Ishin hides. Chen's expression was calm. He held his hands and said, because Xerneas itself represents peace, it is the essence of nature. Of course, Chen added with a smile, although it loves peace, it is not a wood that can't get angry. In the arena, colorful lights lingered on the antlers of Xerneas. An inexplicable majestic vitality suddenly rose up. The wounds on it were smoothed out at a speed visible to the naked eye. Xerneas has eternal vitality, explains Chen. It can even share this vitality with other creatures, which, when you think about it, seems to fit well with Chopper's ability to be a Dr. .99. Everyone nodded suddenly and looked at the arena again. Hiss. The snake letter confided in the air, and the giant snake circled, relocking the deer on the opposite side. A pair of vertical pupils are full of murderous desire. This time, Xerneas no longer escaped. It stood on the spot with straight hooves, raised its head, and looked directly at the eyes of the giant snake. Until I'm sure I can't see anything but kills in it. It seemed a little sad and a little angry. Yan. Amidst the high roar of the deer, a golden light bloomed from its body. A huge aura suddenly burst out and spread out. In this breath, there is a natural anger. As if the next moment, the whole world would begin to reject its enemies. Boom. The earth trembled, as if some terrifying power had awakened. The serpent's mighty beast instinct had sensed the danger. So it neighed and zigzagged across the ground, attacking the deer. Boom. Under the ground, as if a heart was beating. The endless power of the earth poured into the body of Xerneas. Open black lens bracket earth control close black lens bracket. Afterwards, it stood on the spot without dodging and raised its antlers towards the giant snake. Chapter 78 Endless Vitality. Nine Tails is coming, a walking natural disaster. Shoot. Like a sharp knife piercing the cloth. The purple skin of the giant snake, as tough as a rock formation, did not provide the slightest protection. The antlers of Xerneas were like a long knife pointing to the sky, piercing the defense of the giant snake. And its four hooves suddenly exerted force and pulled outwards. Kakaka. The wound continued to tear and stretch, and a huge opening was pulled open at the snake's belly. Gurgling blood flowed down. Fizz. A loud hissing sound resounded. The giant snake flung itself back like a man who stepped on a mousetrap. At the wound, there is a divine force preventing healing. With this blow alone, the giant snake has already suffered heavy losses. Boom. The earth trembled. Xerneas did not stop his movements. It seems to have determined that the giant snake in front of it is the object that needs to be destroyed. The mind of the giant snake is full of the desire to kill and destroy, and has no other feelings. Such a killing machine also violated the philosophy of Xerneas. The golden light is extremely dazzling, and the endless power of the earth is surging in its body. Strength and speed are all elevated to an incredible realm. The divine breath spread. It seems that the majestic vitality of the rejuvenation of all things irrigates the earth. For a time, a spectacle even appeared in the arena. Flowers, plants and trees broke through the ground, ushered in a new life, and stretched their bodies in the air. Even everyone in the audience was affected at this time. Nami breathed with a big mouth full of enjoyment, with a look of surprise in his eyes. I feel like I've become younger. Zoro caressed the knife mark on his chest with a solemn expression. My wound, healing. Chopper also puffed out his small arms and shouted in disbelief. I feel like my strength has grown. Sanji, Usopp, and Wei Wei all took a deep breath, as if there was some nice fragrance in the air. Everyone felt the same way. This is the purest vitality, like a gift of nature, and a miracle. Like a baby in its mother's womb. Peaceful, natural, comfortable, as if to forget all the troubles. Hey, suddenly, Chen sighed helplessly and reminded aloud. You all wake up. What I'm building here is an illusion, and your feelings are actually fake. For a time, everyone opened their eyes and looked embarrassed. Hey, why do you remind me? Nami puffed up his cheeks in dissatisfaction. You ruined such a good atmosphere. Yes, that's right, Usopp echoed. He even made an aftertaste expression. Just now, it was as if I was soaking in a hot spring in the mountains, which was very comfortable. Chen glanced at him. Did you forget what I built the illusion for? At this time, the talents reacted, and they looked at the arena suddenly. They came in to watch the battles of these otherworld powerhouses. Inside the field, Zernia's figure has disappeared from sight. To be precise, its speed has reached the point where it is difficult to catch with the naked eye. Only the sound of breaking air could be heard resounding. Sudden, a golden light lit up above the serpent's head. The deer's hoof appeared and stomped down. Boom. The sound of a morning bell and a drum resounded in the air. Kakakakaka. A burst of bone cracking sounded incessantly. Everyone could clearly see the cracks, which spread from the top of the giant snake's head toward the body. The huge body of the giant snake froze in place, motionless. Pata pata. Pieces of shattered bodies fell to the ground. With this step, the giant snake was directly smashed, and its vitality was completely destroyed. Jarius fell to the ground and stood in front of the giant snake, quietly staring at the demise of this giant beast. It bowed its head slightly, as if mourning the loss of life. Although this life may be a fake full of killing and destruction. Snapped. With the snap of fingers, the picture in the arena fell into a stagnation. Chen turned his head to look at Chopper. How does it feel? This one, but I specially selected it. 5. It's because Zernia's abilities, appearance, etc., all fit too well with Chopper. Also dear. It even has the ability to share vitality, which is very attractive to Chopper as a doctor. It seems to fit. Usopp wiped his long nose. Nami also smiled and said, if we choose this, maybe we can all stay young in the future. That is an immortal spirit with eternal life. You can even share your life with others. Zoro held the long knife and said calmly, don't worry about anything, just follow your heart. 35. Chopper hesitantly looked at the arrogant deer in the field, his face full of confusion. Of course it also knows that this one fits itself very well. But sometimes, what people want is often not the one that suits them best. It can be said that if the training difficulty is the same, then Chopper will be more inclined to choose the previous Lemuru. That's a super spec powerful enough to ignore the so-called fit. People tend to pursue perfect more than fit. In the world of pirates, that is the pursuit of power. Well, let's look at the next one. Chen nodded clearly and snapped his fingers. Snapped. With the snap of fingers, the scene in the arena suddenly reset. A new huge figure descended into the field out of thin air. A fiery red light illuminated the huge arena. 9 huge tails are in the air, like the tentacles of a devil. This is a fox. 9 tails demon fox. On its red-orange fur, there is a flaming energy oozing out. It's like a ferocious beast that came to the world with the fire of hell. Just as soon as he appeared on the stage, a terrifying and violent aura spread out, filling the entire arena almost instantly. Ominous. It seems that the appearance of this demon fox will bring disaster. Although it is in a state of motionless stillness. The crowd felt as if they would be attacked in the next moment. Guru. Usopp couldn't help swallowing. What kind of monster is this? Pressure. Just looking at it, people can't help but feel a terrible pressure. In terms of strength, perhaps the previous Lemuru was stronger. But Lemuru's external image gives the impression of being harmless to humans and animals, and even cute. The demon fox in front of him showed his fierceness to the fullest as soon as he appeared on the stage. Zoro's eyes were condensed, and his pupils seemed to be burning with fighting intent. What a strong breath. His hand has unconsciously put on the hilt of the knife. Chopper stared blankly at the demon fox in the arena. Okay, so strong. These beings seen here, each one surpasses its previous knowledge. After staying on Drum Island for so many years, it was the first time that it discovered that such a powerful existence could exist in the world. Kurama, Chen said, one of the 9-headed beasts in the Hokage world, and the strongest, 9 tails, among them. Jingjing, has infinite chakra, is a fierce guy, known as the walking natural disaster. Aside, Usopp nodded in agreement. I feel this. Even if he was far away, he could feel the violent aura coming towards him. Then, let's start. Chen snapped his fingers with a smile. Snapped. The scene in the arena suddenly changed from dead silence to activity. A huge purple snake descended into the field out of thin air. A cold, cruel aura rose up. However, it has not waited for its breath to dissipate. Roar. 35. In the eyes of 9 tails, a group of red flames ignited. The terrifying roar seemed to be the death knell announcing death. The crimson chakra, which is so huge that it seems to be endless, does not want to spill over money. Sparks were rendered in the air. Hiss. As if feeling some kind of deadly threat. The giant snake pushed away at an extremely fast speed, and its body circled together. A pair of gloomy vertical pupils stared at the demon fox opposite. The snake unbelievably confided in the air, as if collecting information about the other party. Its gloomy aura was completely suppressed by 9 tails' fiery aura, and it shrunk into a ball, unable to advance an inch. This picture is like a block of ice surrounded by a huge sea of fire. Cannot escape the end of being melted by flames. Ninetales glanced at it, squatted on the spot without caring, and said solemnly, I only felt bottomless malice from you. 99. In its eyes, a flash of memory seemed to flash. It is even purer than the maliciousness of those Nuo Jiaohao guys. 35. That is to say, Ninetales' eyes suddenly condensed. You are not a normal creature. The giant snake on the opposite side did not respond at all. As if in its mind, the word, communication, does not exist. In the audience, Chen explained softly, Kurama has the ability to perceive maliciousness. It has suffered thousands of years of war, hatred, betrayal, a collection of hatred. Because of strong feelings, the pain and hatred that can be felt are more and more intense, and a keen perception of malice. 5. Everyone around them opened their eyes. This demon fox is very emotional. Even developed the ability to perceive maliciousness because of being betrayed. This contrast is too big. After all, the image it shows is like that of a world-destroying villain. Hiss. In the arena, the roar of a giant snake suddenly swelled. Even the violent and terrifying aura of Ninetales can't suppress its nature of killing and destruction. Boom. With a flick of the long tail, it cut through the layers of air waves and slammed down in the direction of Ninetales. Chapter 79 Pure Destruction. Tailed Beast Bomb. It's like the end is coming. Boom. Ninetales squatted on the spot and didn't move, letting the tail of the giant snake fall on it. The huge force seemed to blast the air, and the sound of gas explosion roared. However, Ninetales' figure remained motionless. On the contrary, on the tail of the giant snake, the crimson chakra flames spread, as if to burn it directly. Hey, Ninetales' eyes contained a hint of mockery. It's really a primitive and clumsy way of fighting. In your mind, is there only fighting left? In its view, this is nothing more than a mindless beast. It is not qualified to be its opponent at all, although Ninetales also looked down on the other 8-headed beasts that had fought with it. But those 8 guys were at least rational. Betrayal and alliances are not uncommon in their tailed beast wars. It is simply not comparable to the killing weapon in front of him. Hiss. The serpent felt threatened by these chakra flames. Its tail kept rolling on the ground, trying to obliterate it. However, these crimson flames are like maggots on the tarsus, and they can't be driven out. These flames will not be extinguished until the carrot from Ninetales is exhausted. Being burned by fire, the pain can be imagined, so the giant snake will keep rolling on the ground. However, this has inspired its instinctive ferocity. The huge snake body snakes and crawls on the ground, and the speed is as fast as ultimate. Along the way, smoke and dust rolled up, and gravel splashed. The violent action even dragged a deep ravine on the ground. HMPH, a mere beast. Ninetales' eyes were cold, and he looked straight at him proudly. Can't you see the difference between you and this uncle? But for any kind of rational creature, the first reaction at this time should be to turn around and run away. The gap between the two sides is too great. It's not a level of existence at all. Just like in nature, frogs don't take the initiative to attack a lion majesty. This is repression by nature. However, in 973, the giant snake completely ignored these, and the huge snake body suddenly broke through the air and attacked. This time, Ninetales did not allow the opponent's attack. Its claws were firmly pressed on the head of the giant snake, and the infinite force surged, pressing it to the ground. Boom. A deafening muffled sound came out. The head of the giant snake smashed into the ground without hindrance, the gravel splashed all over the sky, and the smoke billowed up. The tail of the snake that fell behind was still trembling in the air. For a time, the giant snake suffered a heavy blow, and was temporarily silent. This scene is like a child rushing towards a strong and powerful adult, wanting all kinds of punches and kicks. As a result, he was slapped to the ground by the adults. The brains were buzzing, and they fell directly into a state of ignorance. Your attack makes me laugh. Ninetales held the giant snake and grinned with a ferocious smile. The 9 huge tails seemed to be getting bigger and bigger, constantly dancing in the air. Its fierce nature finally began to be revealed again. Kakaka. The huge power suddenly came, the giant snake struggled and twisted its body, and its head suddenly broke free from Ninetales' claws. But what it did the first time was not to run away. Instead, he straightened his body and opened his mouth to the huge demon fox in front of him, his throat slightly bulging. Huh, Ninetales' eyes narrowed. It's really slippery, so I hate snakes. Next moment, a dark, poisonous mist suddenly shot out from the giant snake's mouth. The air was instantly dyed black, and there was a sound of being corroded. Unprepared, Ninetales also inhaled a few mouthfuls of poisonous mist. Cough cough, although not poisoned, but choked. For a time, its expression became ugly, just a reptile. 35. The next moment, the huge Ninetales demon fox opened his mouth. The dark chakra began to gather in its mouth. A wave of destructive power spreads out. This force, as if endless, was inconceivably huge, constantly gathering, compressing, and compressing in the mouth of Ninetales. Eventually, a black materialized sphere was formed. Zilla. Around the ball, there seems to be dark lightning generated, indicating the terrible power contained in it. In the audience, everyone slowly opened their eyes. They clearly sensed that a terrifying disaster was about to come. Tailed Beast Bomb, explained Chen, change your chakra energy form to ultimate. Subsequently, in the ratio of yin and yang to 2 to 8, it is mixed and compressed in the mouth to form an ultra-dense energy sphere. This move doesn't have too many skills, it just shows the power of the tailed beast incisively and vividly. Tailed Beast Bomb belongs to S-rank ninjutsu in the classification of ninjutsu levels. But in fact, compared to other S-rank ninjutsu, it couldn't be simpler. The only requirement is, the user must have a huge chakra of the Tailed Beast level. This threshold alone has already killed an unknown number of people. Suddenly, Zoro's eyes widened. Come on. In the arena. Ninetales finally highlighted the black energy sphere in the mouth. There seemed to be a cyclone in the air, the trace left by the Tailed Beast Bomb piercing the air. The sphere smashed straight into the ground where the giant snake was. In the beginning nothing happened, everything was calm. After a short period of time, a black beam of light suddenly bloomed on the spot. The ground began to crack inch by inch, and huge waves of air were blowing around, and the air pressure was suppressed. The terrifying energy continued to spill out all around. Boom. Until this time, a violent explosion sound that seemed to pierce the eardrums came from the arena with hindsight. Everyone in the audience couldn't help but shuddered. This is. Usopp stared blankly at the scene, speechless. Although there were still smoke and dust and crimson chakra flames covering the sky, he couldn't see the specific situation. But just thinking about it, you know what a terrifying effect this will have. At least, that giant snake must be more fortunate. It's amazing. ACBC, Chopper stood on a seat, looking at the arena with a little excitement in his eyes. It's even already fantasizing. Later, they encounter a strong enemy, and then they spit out a tailed beast bomb scene. This is the most direct attack method of tailed beasts, Chen said with his hands clasped, because their chakras are so huge. Especially Kurama, which has an infinite amount of chakra. Simple and rude, but the most efficient way to fight. One mouthful of tailed beast bomb spit out, and directly wiped out the enemy, which is unreasonable. In the arena, Ninetales stopped in place and looked forward. Isn't it dead yet? It can sense that the pure malice has not dissipated. Suddenly, in the smoke, a tattered snake tail was thrown out. A 100-footed worm, dead but not stiff. The life force of the giant snake is very tenacious. Although it is already in a dying state, it still uses its last strength to launch an attack. Bam! The tail of the snake smashed into the head of the huge demon fox, and then fell to the ground weakly. Quote. Ninetales' eyes seemed to twitch fiercely. The crimson chakra flames on its body suddenly surged high. Even Chen in the audience raised his eyebrows unexpectedly. Can you still attack? He thought that the tailed beast bomb just now, the giant snake should be wiped out. Unexpectedly, there is still enough energy to throw off his tail. Although it seems, it is indeed extremely miserable. This scene even reminded him of the scene in Kung Fu. Fire Cloud Cthulhu hammered a Zing's head into the ground. However, a Xing was still trembling and reached out to pick up the wooden stick, smashing it on the head of the Huiyan evil god with a bang. How could it be so similar? Roar. A huge roar containing infinite anger and deep violence resounded suddenly in the arena. Ninetales was really furious this time, and the negative emotions couldn't hold back. A burst of dark energy light particles continued to gather in its mouth. Die. 35. The wave of terror continued to spread. Saw. A dense air-breaking sound resounded. Black high-density energy spheres were ejected one by one, drawing conspicuous trajectories in the air. Eventually, a black line formed, slammed straight into the ground, and then kept moving. The endless chakra is sprayed as if it were free of money. Boom. The entire area where the giant snake was located was shrouded in pitch-black energy, and a dazzling beam of light shot up into the sky. The air waves continued to superimpose, and the soil and petrochemicals turned into fly ash. Tailed beast bomb scrubs. A cloud of smoke like a mushroom rose from the ground. Crimson energy flames were burning all over the sky, and gray cotton wool-like objects were floating in the air. A scene like the immediate apocalypse appeared in front of him. Hiss. There was a sound of inhalation in the audience. Terrible, this hellish sight. A tailed beast bomb, in their opinion, is already the ultimate skill. But now, the tailed beast bombs are falling one after another. It's not so much a fight, it's better to say that this is Ninetales venting the endless anger in his heart. When the smoke gradually dissipated, everyone could see that in the huge arena, a bottomless circular pit with a diameter of over 1,000 meters had appeared. It was like being bombarded by a huge meteorite, and that giant snake had long since lost sight of its ashes. Snapped. With the snap of his fingers, the picture in the arena suddenly fell into a stagnation. Chen looked back at Chopper with a smile on the corner of his mouth. How does it feel this time? If Limuru represents omnipotence, Xerneas represents endless life. Well, what Ninetales represents is pure destruction. Powerful and fierce, under the tailed beast bomb, everything dissipated in ash. If one doesn't work, then 10. Even destroy the entire environment where the enemy is located. At this time, everyone finally understood what a walking natural disaster meant. Chapter 80 Madara is coming. Lucky Cat, a big monster close to the realm of God. In the audience, everyone could even see some crimson flames floating in the air not far ahead. Even if the picture has frozen, they can feel the violent energy in it. It's an apocalyptic scene. Even Zoro couldn't help frowning. It's such a strong destruction, breath. That demon fox is simply a synonym for disaster. After the unrestrained huge force ran rampant, the current situation was created. Sanji exhaled a puff of smoke, and then said, although it is very strong, this kind of power will make training difficult, right? Chen shrugged, it was inevitable. Obtaining the power of Ninetales may not be as difficult as Limuru's, but it will never be easy. Because the power of the tailed beast is based on their huge chakra. To obtain the power of 9 tails, is to obtain unlimited 9 tails chakra. No matter how you go step by step, you will experience the step from finite to infinite in the end. And this step is bound to be as difficult as reaching the sky. At this moment, Chopper's eyes flashed with a longing light. Okay, that's amazing. Chen raised his eyebrows. He thought Chopper would resist such an existence. After all, the compatibility between Chopper and 9 tails is too incompatible. Chopper smiled and scratched his head. It's really strong, but maybe it's not very suitable for me. It looks forward to this kind of power. But relatively speaking, it also knows that it may not be suitable for this template. That pure aura of destruction, just thinking about it makes people shudder. It doesn't matter, Chen said calmly. You can choose whichever you want, just follow your heart. After speaking, he snapped his fingers again. If that's the case, let's read all 4 first. Snapped. With the snap of fingers, the scene in the arena suddenly reset. Huge craters, scattered chakra, flames, smoke, etc., were all wiped out one by one. At the same time, a new figure appeared in the arena. To be precise, it was a cat. The main color is white, bulging, fat, and even fat to the point of developing into a pig. The short tail unique to the lucky cat is exposed to the air. A pair of eyes seemed to be laughing, like the funny expressions in the expression pack, which made people feel funny. There are bells hanging around the neck, and orange and gray patterns on the back and head respectively. This is a very typical image of a lucky cat. The most interesting thing is that its cat paws even hold a bottle of wine. Zoro was silent again, the fighting intent in his eyes slowly extinguished. He didn't know why the otherworld powerhouses that Chen had summoned were always so maverick in appearance. Like the 9 tails who appeared just now, there are only a handful of characters who look strong. Most of the so-called strong people have powerful deceptive appearances. Like the blue slime from before, although they are really strong. This cat, Sanji coughed lightly. This one, is he strong too? That's right, 35 Chen nodded and said. It's called Madara, from the Natsumi world, one of the most advanced monsters, infinitely close to the realm of God. You can also call it teacher cat. Of course, this, Madara, is not that, Madara. The, Madara, of Natsumi world, very few people know his real name, is a big monster. And the Uchiha Madara in the world of Hokage, Madara, is famous all over the world. It makes people think of him subconsciously just by hearing the name, Madara. Monster. Yekai. Chopper's expression turned sour, as if his teeth were chattering. Chen glanced at it strangely. You are not even afraid of 9 tails, but you are afraid of it. Compared to the terrifying appearance of 9 tails. The chubby lucky cat in front of me is so cute, isn't it? But that's a monster. Chopper's voice was raised a little. You could hear it was really scary. This is normal, just like some people are not afraid of ghosts, but are afraid of cockroaches. It was Nami, who rubbed Chopper's head. Don't be afraid, isn't it a monster, it's just an illusion. Saying that, she looked at Chen, and her eyes shone again. Hey, lucky cat, can it really attract wealth? This time, her focus is no longer on cute looks. Obviously, Nami's guessing attributes have the upper hand. The corners of Chen's mouth twitched slightly. It's just sealed inside the lucky cat, so it appears as a lucky cat, 35. If I have to say it, the body of Madara is not a cat. Nami's voice stretched out and her cheeks puffed out. Well, it's really useless. The voice was full of disappointment, as if Bailey had missed a billion. Hey, this is a big monster, not a lucky cat. Besides, the lucky cat itself is a kind of superstition. Chen was powerless to complain. Woo. Luffy also clenched his fists. Chen turned to look at him. Can't you talk? This is the fantasy world, and Luffy's tape has long since disappeared. Yeah, Luffy was stunned, his eyes widened. I can speak. 35. He was used to being gagged, and subconsciously thought he couldn't speak. Zoro on the side raised his hand to cover his face, his expression full of helplessness. I still wonder why you were so quiet this time. 99. Co-authored, this kid has forgotten that he can speak. However, Luffy didn't care about this at all, and looked at the lucky cat in the arena with interest. So this is the monster. Obviously, he is very much looking forward to the legendary monster. Usopp next to him also touched his long nose and nodded. Well, the monsters of Otherworld actually look like this. He also blew some bullshit about monsters. However, in his imagination, the monsters should be some brutal guys with green faces and fangs. Unexpectedly, the real monster actually looks like this, with a naive look. Lucky cat. Okay, that's enough. Chen rubbed his temples rarely. Let's watch the battle. This group of people is really weird, and their focus is always different from ordinary people. So, let's get started. He snapped his fingers. Snapped. The next moment, the suspended picture in the arena suddenly came alive. The familiar sound of snake spitting out echoed in the arena. A huge purple snake descended out of thin air, its body slowly circling. The cold, cruel aura spread out instantly. A pair of vertical pupils immediately caught the beckoning cat on the opposite side, as if locking their prey. Lucky cat was stunned for a moment. Why am I here? The next moment, it looked up at the giant snake on the opposite side again. Hey, bro, what kind of eyes are you looking at? Are you going to eat me? The voice of the lucky cat sounds cheap, making people feel like it is playing a bad idea. The giant snake didn't respond, just watched it silently, as if looking for a deadly opportunity. Tisk, that look in your eyes is really scary. The lucky cat patted his stomach, sat down on the ground, picked up the wine bottle in his hand and put it into his mouth. Grumbling. After a few sips of wine, a little blush appeared on its face. Hiccup, good wine. For a time, the atmosphere in the arena became a little weird. Even the giant snake seemed a little stunned, unable to analyze what the other party was doing. In the auditorium, Lu Chen's eyes twitched slightly, and he coughed softly. Cough. Madara, this guy is a veritable alcoholic. Then, he added. Also, the wine is very poor, he likes to sing randomly when he is drunk, and at the same time, he is a very greedy guy. 39. The people around were speechless. In just a few words, Lu Chen had already sketched a standard, alcoholic, image for them. Such a guy could actually be the so-called big monster close to the realm of the gods. Hiss. In the arena, the huge snake body suddenly pierced through the air, setting off layers of air waves. The giant snake finally determined that the cat on the opposite side was not preparing any special moves. But simply ignore it, sit on the ground and drink. The aura of the giant snake became more and more gloomy and cold, as if it was completely provoked. Hey, are you serious? The lucky cat stood up from the ground and stared at the giant snake with wide eyes. Boom. The huge snake body suddenly fell, smashing the ground and sending rocks flying. Smoke rose from the sky. In the audience, Usopp blinked blankly. This, won't it end? 99. That cat looks like an ordinary drunk cat. Even because its body is too fat, its movements may not be as agile as ordinary cats. However, the next moment. But the cheap voice of the lucky cat sounded above the giant snake's head. It really scared me to death. It even unscrupulously patted the giant snake on the head. Brother, as for this, do you want to drink my wine? 39. Saying that, it held up its own wine bottle and hesitated. Well, there is only half a bottle left, and I may not have enough to drink myself. 99. His tone was very serious, as if he had decided that this snake was here to grab its wine. Hiss. The serpent was caught in a strange state of rage. The huge snake body slammed around on the ground, and the mighty force poured out, even the steel could be directly smashed. The beckoning cat smiled, paused lightly, and the whole cat suddenly disappeared without a trace. All that was left was the giant purple snake that was still rolling around with debris. The skin as thick as a rock formation was twisted together like a shredder, and even a series of sparks were rubbed together. At this time, everyone in the audience responded. This cat is actually playing with that giant snake.